It's new. The name's a little bit long though. It's the BMW Concept M8 Grand Tourer. Wow, that's quite some mouthful. Let's take a look and see what it's like. Well, I'm sure you're aware that the 8 Series is due for a bit of a revamp, and with this concept, BMW really want to give us a flavour of what's to come. They're saying that the M stands for more. More everything, more design, more style, more power, more speed, more performance. Well, as is always the case with concepts, we never quite know how much of this is actually going to make it through to production, but you can really see the intention in this car right here. They want to take on Mercedes in terms of providing the ultimate in class, luxury and performance. Are they going to be able to achieve it? Well, again, it really does depend how much of this is going to make it through to production. But if first looks are anything to go by, it's really something exciting that we're going to be very pleased to try out. Well, that's a very brief look at the car. Obviously, with the concept, we still don't know whether this is a fair representation of what's to come, whereas with Mercedes, obviously, we can already sit in their car, and Thomas has, and see what we think of the finished version. But I really appreciate the bold steps that have been taken and that are shown here with the M8. They really are trying to evolve it into something fresh and new. Look at it, it's so aggressive. Those big exhaust ports on the back, the cheeky lift on the little tail of the boot, and the sleek looks from the side. This is certainly not your average business sedan. It's very coupe-like, very aggressive. It's fantastic, and I can only hope that it's just as much fun to drive as it is to look at. This is going to be a very quick preview of the new Nissan Leaf. Why very quick? Well, we're aware that there are already some driving reviews of this car online. We're going to do ours very soon. But we don't want to keep you waiting for now, and as we are here spoilt for choice for cars, and this is such an important one, it seemed like a good idea to take the opportunity just to show you around the redesign so you can get a flavour for it before we get to take it out. Now, there haven't been many cars in history that have divided opinion so dramatically as the last design of the Leaf. What do I mean by that? It was incredibly popular. It's one of Nissan's best-selling models, and it is the best-selling electric vehicle that you can get. The styling is what I mean. Now, okay, you have an awful lot of batteries to fit into any electric car. But seriously, Nissan, the previous one looked a little bit like you described a car to a person who'd never seen one before, given them a piece of paper and said, go ahead, draw what you like. It had its fans. I wasn't one of them. Fair enough. But I think even Nissan recognized they wanted to make the styling look a little bit less controversial, shall we say. And at first glance, I think that they actually have approached that. It's still very definitely a Nissan. The angularity is all still here. And why limit yourself to having black lacquer piano inside the car when you can put it right on the bumper? Again, not my taste, but never mind. Compared with its predecessor, this does look a lot more modern. We still have very sculptural angular headlights, but they look a little bit more intentional now. They look cut into the bodywork rather than sticking out and extruding from it. So I think that's a huge improvement. Let's take a look and see how it runs through into the side. Well, the previous Leaf didn't really give us a huge amount to play with from the side profile. Almost could call it either nondescript. Well, you still had those incredibly distinctive rear lights poking right into your field of view. I am really pleased with what they've done here. This looks so much more stylish. Again, I think maybe somebody owes the light designer, which is why every time they redo the car, they still get to have some angularity to it, but they're so much more discreet. The car still keeps its uniqueness right from this nice pitch straight through from the bonnet into the side. That looks so much more natural than its predecessor, and it flows. The previous model most definitely did not flow, and these lights now, instead of looking terribly uncomfortable, look very intentional and completely unique. Good job is what I would say. Nicely done, Nissan. This is a car that I'm not going to be embarrassed to drive. Through to the rear now, and wow, what a change. Now, some people might say, well, I still don't like it that much. I'm not going to say that's the greatest back of a car I've ever looked at, but you know what? Compared to the last Leaf, it's fantastic. Again, it's stylish, it's modern, it feels contemporary. There are many people walking in front of this shop, but we're going to keep going. We're professionals. It really makes a statement, and the statement is, this is a Leaf. It's completely unique, it's not confusable with any other car, but it's also not overblown and too much. I'm really impressed with how they've done this, and I think if they've carried that through to the interior, it's really a step in the right direction. The previous Leaf looked a little bit Spartan on the inside and very, very plastic. I think that they've really worked hard to continue that evolution in style and design in the interior. Look at this, it's a huge improvement. The screen doesn't look so plastic and nasty as the previous one. I don't know if you remember, but it had that fold down screen. It just didn't feel nice, and you could see that breaking really very quickly, so it's nice to see that properly integrated here. You have to bear in mind with this car, obviously, the most important functionality of it is its ability to deliver electric power to you. So you're going to get some compromises, because to bring that in at a price point that's realistic, you're going to need to use slightly cheaper materials on the interior, and that's going to mean a slightly cheaper infotainment system. But really, it looks very functional, and I'm sure it's more than capable of doing the job. The steering wheel feels like a grown-up steering wheel compared to what came before. We now have this full functionality. Here we have a partially digital display. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, in electric cars, that really comes in handy, specifically because we really need to keep up to speed with what the car's battery is doing. And this gives us a lot of features that we like. We've got blind spot detection. We've also got, there we are, tire pressure monitoring. Always a big fan of that. And we have the ability, I think, to set cruise in this one. I believe that's what that is. Hopefully we'll find out a bit later. Other than that, very nice, simple, straightforward air conditioning, heating, cooling controls. This car comes with heated seats. That's a nice touch. We have a USB port. We have an aux in for the stereo. And we have a 12-volt charging point. Now, one of the features of the first Leaf that I was never a fan of, but lots of people were, was the gear knob. And I think that Nissan have really listened to the feedback, because the styling has really quite radically changed, but the gear knob has not. Now, why am I not a fan of this? It's very gimmicky and a lot of people love it. I think the reason is only that I think everything that you touch all the time when you drive should be made of the best materials you can. And I just always felt that if this had been made of something like a brushed aluminium, it would feel and resonate with quality. Whereas the plastic, you can't get around it, feels like plastic. But now with this black finish and this blue lighting around the side, it certainly looks a lot better. It looks better quality, a nicer finish. If they'd surrounded it in anything other than this fingerprint magnet, then I'd be really happy with it. But come on, I'm being picky. You've got everything you need. We've got cup holders back here and pretty decent storage bin as well. Again, this car was really never intended about providing people with a luxury drive, but that said, the drive in the predecessor was always very, very good. This one I'm hoping can only be better, but in terms of the way that the style has changed, I think you can say that the Leaf has grown up. I think for me, one of the things that I've always liked most about the Leaf is that where other manufacturers have been pursuing making bigger, making faster, Nissan, I really think, were pioneers in terms of saying, look, electric can be for everyone and we can make a very credible car. We can give you a small car that will achieve everything you would expect from a small car on an electric platform. A lot of people prior to that said it just wasn't possible. Now, I think this is a really good example. Look at this. I've actually got a decent amount of headroom here. Yeah, sure, there's not a crazy amount, but I've got quite a long torso and I still have about an inch spare above my head. Look at this knee space. Yeah, you could say that's not enormous and I don't have long legs, but it's a small car. And I'm more than impressed with the way that the space is being used here. But not just that, because the space was very well used in the first Leaf. Again, it's all about the styling. It's so much better. This doesn't feel like a child's car anymore. It really feels very adult. And I'd be perfectly happy taking a drive back here. The seats are comfortable, they're firm, they're supportive. You're really not going to want 3 people in the back, but you're comfortable with 2. Batteries, of course, begin being located underneath these seats. Common complaint with electric cars, always, well, that's great, but I have no boot left. I was always very impressed with how the first Leaf dealt with that. Let's see how they've done with the predecessor. A common complaint with electric cars is always, well, where do the batteries go? And 9 times out of 10, it really limits the amount of boot space you have. One of the features I liked best about the first Leaf was the fact that they used the space so unbelievably well. You still had a really great amount of boot space, even with those batteries. So let's see how they've done with this one. Wow. That is absolutely fantastic. Now you might be looking at that thinking, where on earth are the batteries? Well, as with the first, I believe that they are underneath the back seat, so there's no shortage of room in here. Obviously, we're a little compromised in terms of the loading area. That is certainly not what you would call a zero depth entry, but that's giving us as much space as we could possibly want. We have a little just covering there, there's nothing underneath. We even have a subwoofer in the back. And nicely, in contrast to a lot that you can see fitted on cars, this is not going to be hurt or affected if you load shopping on top of it. So, really nicely thought through, really decent space. Well done, Nissan. So, the new Nissan Leaf, what do we think? Well, I did say at the start it was going to be a very brief look, specifically because there's a lot more detail to come when we do the driving test. But I was desperate to see what they've done with the redesign, and this just gives you a taste of what's to come. Well, I have to say, hats off to Nissan. If the first car was a revolution in terms of electrified transport and offering a relatively inexpensive for an electric car that people could buy en masse rather than just wealthy people, then this car is a revolution in style. I'm so happy to see that it hasn't lost its distinctive character, but it has lost some of its... Well, you can put that word in there instead. I think it's great. The interior is nice, it looks a lot more grown up. It feels a lot more grown up, and overall, I would say it's a superb next step for the Leaf. Now, will that be delivered in terms of the drive? Will you still feel that same range anxiety? Will you still have to fork out really rather a lot more than for its non-electric opponents? Well, we're going to have to wait to answer those questions. But for now, I think it's a very nice job indeed, and I'm really looking forward to giving it a drive. Well, as I'm sure you can imagine, electrification is a big topic here, and Hyundai want to make sure that they're right ahead of the pack with their brand new Kona EV. Is it going to be as popular as the standard edition? Let's take a look and find out. The small SUV is a massive growth market in automotive, as seen by the success last year of Seat Zerouno. And Hyundai want to make sure that they are leading the advance with their own electric version of their already very popular Kona. Well, obviously they want you to know that it is a little different, a little bit special when compared to the standard car, and we can see that with some of the styling cues here. Now, I think as in common with a lot of electric vehicles, the idea is to make the car a little bit more futuristic in styling and in delivery. And you can see that right here in the grille. Whereas if you look at the standard Kona, really the grille is exactly what you'd expect. This is much more futuristic in terms of styling. It looks very clean, it looks very modern, but you kind of do have to wonder, how's this going to look after a few miles on the road when the dirt starts to build up in it? Could be a bit of a pain to keep clean, but brand new sitting here on the floor, it certainly does look good. As we come slightly higher up with the car, we notice one of the first changes, and that's that this car is actually 15 millimeters higher than the standard. You don't really notice it to look at it in terms of the styling, but it does feel like it has a little bit more presence sitting here than its standard partners. Now, the styling of this car is really very nice indeed. It's no easy thing making your car look modern and futuristic without making it look slightly questionable. If you've watched my earlier review of the Leaf and you've heard about my feelings on the previous version, you'll know exactly what I mean. Basically, the idea is that you have to make the car fresh, new, futuristic, but still be acceptable to look at. A key feature for all electric cars is going to be the charge point, and it's a little bit of a bugbear for me. Again, as I mentioned earlier with the front, I'm really asking myself, how will this be when it is covered in dirt? And because we have the charge point right here, that means you are always going to get to find out when you want to charge your car. And there really is no way of opening this flap without getting whatever's on it all over you. A little bit plasticky in terms of its feeling. I would have liked a bit more solidity in terms of how that feels when you use it. Charge points very easily accessible here. I don't think you can have any problem hooking this up to power at all. Let's see. Now, that could be a little bit nicer to use. I'm doing all of this while imagining I'm standing in the rain somewhere wanting to get home. You can see nice battery level indicator here, that's very handy. And then push to close. So, okay, functional, but I think you're going to get quite messy using it. At some point there must have been a meeting amongst electric car designers where they all agreed their new cars would have piano black on the exterior. I have no idea why you would do that, but at least it's a little bit more subtle and discreet and less all-encompassing than featured on the Leaf. And the contrast between the black and white is nice. It helps keep the car's perspective exactly as you would want it. The styling's modern but not too modern. The contrast between the lighter grey down at the base, the white and the black at the top helps to keep the proportions of the car really tight. It feels dynamic without in any way looking like it's trying to pretend to be something other than it is. And from first glance, I would say it's a really fun exterior. You really want to enjoy this car. It doesn't look like it takes itself too seriously. Hopefully that feeling continues round at the back. Let's go take a look. That clean styling does continue round to the back. Now, the piano black is a lot more noticeable from the rear, and it does create a nice contrast with the white. But again, as with the front, I'm more than a little bit concerned about how this car is going to look once it gets a little bit dirty. It looks great brand new, but I think after you take it for a quick winter drive, maybe it won't look so good. I like the way that these narrow lights have been brought round from the side to accentuate the way that the car flows through to the back. It is a small car, but it still has presence on the road. Again, we can see that slightly elevated lift through the rear section here, which makes it just look like it has a bit more presence than its standard sibling. Well, straight from the start, there aren't huge amounts of styling cues that suggest that this is radically different to the standard Kona. But the center console feels and looks a little bit different. It's actually a shelf, so we have a whole storage area underneath here, and the reason for that is obviously we don't have to make room for a gearbox. Very nice. I would say that the interior feels modern, light and spacious. Those are all good things for an electric vehicle. I have the information I need. It's laid out the way that I would want it to be. We have a partially digital display for the driver here. It's nice and understated. It's not too bold. It looks kind of young and fresh, which I appreciate. Yeah, not such a fan of this, but I think we already know this infotainment system pretty well. You know, it's very difficult to make any in-car technology look modern, because the fact is we're all so used to smartphones now that anything you put into a car will have spent such a long time in development that it's going to look dated from the second you put it in there. So although I would say this isn't really in keeping with the modern styling of the car, I don't know that they could have done a lot better with it at this price point, certainly. So it's fine. Plastic over the top of the dashboard, but it looks clean, fresh, easy to keep clean, and I quite like this styling detail. I think it's nice. Again, when you're trying to limit how much you're spending on interior styling, it's going to be a lot of plastic, but it's always nice to see when companies try and use a little bit of flair and innovation about how they use the material to make you feel like your car is a little bit special. I think that's really important, because we all drive cheaper cars than we would like to, but when we get into them, we don't want to be made to feel cheap. So this does a really nice job of making the best use of the materials for the space, I think. How's the driving position? Well, the seat's actually really nice. It's got this nice breathable finish on it. Sadly leather, but you can't have everything, which means I'm going to be regulating my temperature nicely when the car's on, not so nicely at the moment. But it puts me in a nice elevated position, so my view of the road is actually exactly what you want. The windscreen is quite limited, so in terms of the drop that I have available to look out, I'm not feeling particularly expansive, but the view's good. I have a really nice side view, which means I'm not going to have a problem with reversing and maneuvering this vehicle at all. There's nothing here to distract me. These vents are nice and discreet. The controls are very straightforward and easy to use, and it looks to me like the layout of the multi-functions on the steering wheel are also pretty intuitive and straightforward. There's not a huge amount in here to mark itself out from the regular Kona, but I think that makes perfect sense. When you have a car that it's a success, why change it just for change's sake? I think a lot of the thinking is that they want to migrate some of their standard drivers to this model. If you own a Kona, you like the Kona, and now you have the possibility of buying an electric version, you're not going to want to lose the features that you actually like about the car, and they've done a nice job of maintaining that. But at the same time, it's fresh, it's modern, it's clean. I'm a fan. So, how's the back seat experience of the Kona? Well, come on, it's a small SUV, so you really can't expect too much. And you don't get too much either. There isn't massive amounts of room back here, but I think I could be reasonably comfortable for a relatively long trip. If you have a look at my knees here, you can see that I still have a bit of room to spare. But if you look at my feet down at the bottom, you can see that there's just not a lot of space for me to adjust myself and get really comfortable. Now, I don't know how many people buying this car are going to really want to spend a lot of time with passengers in the back, but I can imagine that a lot of people are going to want to put children back here, and I think they are going to be very happy with this arrangement as it is. Now, there's nothing back here in the way of rear passenger comfort. There's no charging points, there's no separate controls for the heating and cooling of the car. You definitely get the impression that the focus was on the driver and the front seat passenger. But I like that they have kept this styling uniform throughout the entire car, which means that sitting in the back doesn't feel like you're in second class. We've got net cargo holders on the back of the chairs, and I think that's a bit optimistic. It sort of suggests you that you will be having passengers for a bit of a longer trip, but it looks good anyway. We've got anchor points for the seats, so I think it's going to be a really great place to put children. For adults, not so much, but it's really very nice. Boot space is always going to be at a premium in electric vehicles, and the Kona is not going to be any exception to that. Well, that's not the biggest boot in the world. It's 373 litres of load space, but obviously that drops a little bit if you want to make space for the charging cables as well. Let's have a look underneath here. We can see that there's a very tidy, nicely organised place to put bits and pieces. I appreciate that. It's not a lot of room, but it's nice to see that they're trying to make the most of the space there is available. So, clearly you're not going to be able to take this car on holiday with a large amount of suitcases in the back, but you're certainly going to be able to fit your shopping in here, and you're certainly going to be able to fit enough stuff to go away for a nice weekend. So let's take a look and see what's powering this thing. Well, as you can see, we have more than enough space in the engine bay. It's been used very efficiently, and that's probably a good thing because we have some choices here. We don't only have one engine that we can pick from. The available engines that you can go with are going to be a short range one which features a 39 kilowatt battery, and that'll go for about 186 miles on a single charge. If you're going to want something with a little bit more beef to it, you can have the 64 kilowatt version, and that goes for 292 miles per charge. But in my experience, sometimes those mileage estimates are a little bit optimistic. Now, the nice thing about that is that Hyundai have committed to using a more rigorous testing standard. So they say when they produce their figures, they are likely to be much more realistic for real-world users. Well, I think we can hope, and we can certainly try and find out if that is the case. The more powerful will do 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 7.6 seconds. So I think that's going to make this really quite a nippy small SUV. Really quite excited to give it a try. One of the drawbacks of new technology is it's very difficult to visualize. We all have an emotional connection with a petrol engine, so we know kind of how it works and how it all sits together. But electric vehicles sometimes feel a little bit like magic because we know they work, but we can't see what's really underneath. Well, Hyundai have done us a big favor because they provided us with a cutaway model so we can actually see how they've applied the technology to this vehicle. And brilliantly, not only that, but they've also handily labeled all of it so we can see exactly what we're looking at. At first glance, it's a little bit amusing because I kind of am imagining lifting up my bonnet and finding nice labels on everything that tell me what's going on. But you can really get the idea of how the power is delivered. It's animated a little bit to show you where the power is going from. As we come round to the side of the vehicle, we can see what that means in terms of how the cables are run throughout the car. Now, it's really important to know how this configuration works. I don't know if you know, but when electric cars first started, a lot of fire services would not touch them because they had no idea where the power cables were, and if you cut through those, obviously that's a big, big problem. So the configuration over the years has become a lot more straightforward, a lot more standardized, in order that when we have to get emergency access to vehicles, it's a lot simpler to do. This is a really nice, straightforward layout. You really get the sense that they've maximized their use of space here. This, of course, the battery, and that is why we have the extra height on the vehicle, but it's not taking up nearly as much space as you might imagine, and it's only going to get smaller in the future. Well, that about does it for the Hyundai Kona. And what do we think? Well, I have to say one of the things that's really standing out for me this year at the Geneva Motor Show is how impressed I am with the design of these newer electric cars. I'm sure you remember when they first came out, the emphasis was on making them look new, different, original. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of driving one of the first editions of the Toyota Prius. Not only is the styling quite odd, but unfortunately because of it, when you want to drive, your rear view is obscured by the bar in the middle. Nissan obviously followed that lead with a slightly odd looking Leaf. But the market's grown up, it's matured, and the result is that we now have electric vehicles that do look stylish, modern, and a little futuristic, but thankfully are embracing more of the concepts of traditional car design. I would say the aim when you're designing a small SUV is to make it look fun. It's not going to be a serious car for off-road, it's not going to be a serious car for speed, it's not going to be a serious car for space. It's supposed to be small and nippy, and everything about the styling of this car says that to me, while still looking very modern and very clean. The big concern with electric cars is always range anxiety. Well, I'm very impressed with the numbers that they've put up on this car. If they're actually reflective of what the car will actually achieve, and anyone who owns a MacBook Air and tried to get 12 hours out of its battery will know exactly what I'm talking about, then I will be very, very happy with this car. The drive should be nice and fast and nippy. The bigger battery is going to provide what you need for that. and I think the range is more than sufficient for most uses you could have. This is a little taste of what the future might look like, and it's just the first car within this segment to do that. So I'm very excited to see how the other manufacturers will respond, but I don't need to wait until then because I'm very keen to give this one a try. The market for small SUVs has done nothing but explode over the past year. Naturally, Lexus doesn't want to get left behind. It wants a small luxury SUV, and that's what we have here with the launch of the world premiere of the Lexus UX. Now, if it looks slightly familiar to you, it should do. That's because it's based on a concept that was launched at Paris 2 years ago. They've tailed down the styling a little bit from that concept car, but they've managed to keep an awful lot of what made it look so fresh and new. So let's take a look. Well, as you can imagine, being a world premiere, there are lots of people that actually want to get up on this platform, so we're going to have to wait to get closer to it to look in more detail. But for now, Jonas is just going to show you the car as it spins round. The first thing that's really of significant note is this big grille. Is it too big? I don't know. It is particularly unique, and I think it's going to have a lot of fans for that reason. To me, it looks almost like stretched fabric that's been pulled across the front, and you can see that's echoed in the side styling as well. It's aggressive, it's angular, but it's not too aggressive. We can see from these wheel arches, it does want to give you the sense that it will go off-road. I think we have two different options of sizing on wheels, 18 or 19 inches. They don't look in any way too overblown, I think. It certainly does look unique. I think that's the word that keeps coming to me the more I look at this car, is that it's fresh. And that's really nice for a new entrant to the market. Coming around to the back, this is either going to be your taste or it isn't. We have a rear lighting display that goes right the entire length of the boot. Now, this is full LED, and I understand there are about 120 individual LEDs that go together to make up that rear lighting display. So again, it might not be everybody's taste, but it absolutely is going to be unmistakably unique. It's that word again. Let's have a look and see if the interior lives up to that same promise. The avant-garde styling has continued on the interior as well, not as aggressively and pronounced as the outside, but it certainly looks new and fresh. So let's start off at the top here. Look at these controls. I don't believe I've ever seen controls integrated into a dashboard this way. It will be very interesting to see how they feel to use while driving the car. They certainly look new. I think the idea behind this car was to keep as much of the truth of the concept in the finished production model as they possibly could, in order to make sure that it felt like something fresh and different. And it very definitely does. The styling is definitely going to be something that not everyone will go for, but I think it's actually quite nice. There's an angularity. I like the different levels. It may be a little distracting to the driver because there is so much happening visually with this dashboard. So many different levels, so many different types of surface. But that certainly is going to stop you from getting bored of getting into your car. The controls here feel to me very ergonomically laid out, so very easy and quick to access while driving. And you know what, Jonas? We have finally found a car with no piano black in it. I'm so happy. We have this graphite effect plastic, and I really like this. Look at this. No fingerprints, none at all. No reflection, no grease, no dirt. Great. I hope this is a start of a new trend in car design so we can be done with all the piano black. Nice automatic gear lever here. Now look at this touchpad. This obviously is to allow us to interact with the screen. I wonder if we can get that to come on. No, we're not going to be able to access that right now, but you get the idea. It's a standard sort of laptop touchpad affair. that actually feels impressively nice to the touch. When you push this down, the build quality resonates, as it should do, but sadly that doesn't always happen in cars. I've got a rather odd slim shelf here, a nice pop-up charge point, and cup holders back here, and controls for the radio here. This is somewhat reminiscent of the way that Mercedes have approached interacting with their systems. I think Lexus are really trying to push the idea that they are distinct, they are special. Obviously, Lexus is not known for making cheap cars. What they want to do is have a premium brand, and they want a unique premium feel to their vehicles. And that definitely comes across here. Now, as we look throughout the car, we can see that we have in this car leather seats, and apparently the styling has been inspired by traditional Japanese arts, so the stitching is really quite special. It looks very different and is very much in keeping with the styling of the car. You know, I have to be honest with you, when I stood outside this car and took a look at it when it was unveiled, I really didn't think I was going to like it so much. The styling is not quite my cup of tea. It is quite aggressive, and I thought the interior would mirror that. What I'm finding as I sit in here is that it's fresh, it's new, and it does feel premium. I think if I'm introducing this car to other people and saying, hey, look, I got a new car, they're going to be quite happy and impressed. It certainly is different and original. As far as the seating position is concerned, well, the seats don't just look good, they feel good too. Very nice, firm, great position, good visibility. All around, this pillar's a little bit bigger than you might like as far as checking your blind spot's concerned, but I'm sure with all the technology on the car, there ought to be at least 70 different sensors to tell you when you're going to be experiencing a challenge. Now, I don't think that backseat passengers were the primary focus of this design, but who knows, you might have some friends you want to put back there. Let's have a look and see how they'll get on. Lexus is, of course, a luxury brand, and that means that everything about their cars has to resonate with that quality and let the people spending the money know that they invested their money well. The way to achieve that is usually, in my opinion, through the small details. And I'm really pleased to see what Lexus has done with this car. Let's just take a quick look at this door. Now, at first glance, there might not seem to be an awful lot going on there, but it's the attention to the way that the whole thing is put together that I like. There are slightly raised bumps on the speaker grille. They don't do anything, but they just add a nice styling touch. That door handle doesn't just look solid, it feels solid as well. And that's really important in terms of making you feel that you have a quality product. I like the discreet nature of the door lock at the top. It matches the door handle very well. And it's not too ostentatious. I think it's one thing to buy an expensive car, it's another thing that you feel you need to shout about it. And the features in this car don't really announce themselves loudly. They just sit there quietly waiting for you to discover them. And I appreciate that. Let's have a look at this rear light. Now, I often find that the lights are where a lot of money is saved. So even on expensive cars, you can find that they look and feel cheap. I think this looks really nice. It's subtle, it's discreet, and it's nice to touch. So, okay, maybe that's an unimportant detail, but I think cars are all about the unimportant details. Let's look down here. We have some fairly straightforward passenger heating and cooling, and we have charge points down here. There we go. 2 USB ports. So that's great. One thing that I find a little curious is we have a pocket here behind the driver's seat, but none behind the passenger. So if you regularly travel on this side, you're going to be out of luck for having somewhere to keep your book. But other than that, I'm sure you'll be fine. It's not massively spacious back here, but I don't think you would expect it to be. If you have a look at my knees, I really have very little available room to me. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters, so I'm not the biggest guy in the world. But also, as you can see from my head, I don't have a huge amount of headroom. But I'm not going to complain. This car is not designed and built to have people regularly sitting in the back for long drives. It's fine for around town, and there's certainly enough back here to make me feel that attention has been paid to my experience as well as the driver's. If Jonas can just have a quick shot through at the dash, one of the things that I particularly like is that it looks as good from back here as it does in the front. The styling is just really nice. It is unique, it suits this car very well, and I think it says Lexus, which is the most important thing, clearly, that it needs to do. To start, you can get a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, and that's going to give you 168 horsepower. It is going to be optional, however, with a slightly larger engine that's going to produce 176, and it's also going to offer you an all-wheel drive system because it will come with a rear-mounted electric motor as well. And that promises to be really quite exciting to drive. So, to sum up, Lexus really wanted to make a statement with this car, and that statement was, look, we can innovate, we can be different, we can compete within new market segments and bring fresh ideas. And a lot of people said, okay, I know, but everybody says that, will you actually be able to deliver on it? And I really think they have. There are significantly enough features about this car that have been carried through from the concept to keep it looking fresh, unique, different. I'm not quite sure if the interior design is going to be a distraction while driving. It certainly looks as if there are lots of surfaces for you to need to keep clean, but it's nice to see an interesting and fresh approach to how to put a dashboard together. If the drive delivers as much innovation, and I think it will if you go with a more powerful electric supported model, then you're really going to have something to get excited about. Hopefully, we'll get the opportunity to show you how it performs. Well, we are lucky enough to be with the Volkswagen Auto Group, and that means that we have actually 12 different brands represented here. Now, I don't think we have any merchandise yet, but I'll be impressed if you can name all 12 of them. I'm sure Thomas can do something for you if you're the first person to do it without using Google. Come on, let's be fair. So, I'm sitting here in what you can only describe as a proposition of how one possible future might look. I think the message that Volkswagen are very keen to get across to us tonight is that by 2050, 70% of all of us will be living in a city. They're very, very keenly aware that the way that we deal with transportation and the way that we approach cars is going to be changing, and they're keen to be at the forefront of that change and at the forefront of that technology. Hopefully, a little later on, we'll have the opportunity to see how some of their brands are addressing those needs. But in the meantime, I think this is their take on a futuristic taxi. What do you think? Looks pretty cool to me. Volkswagen Group are very enthusiastic that we understand how seriously they're taking the future, and we've had lots of figures thrown at us so far tonight, not least of which is the 34 billion they're planning on investing by 2022 on their electric platforms. You think you've seen electric so far, but according to them, you haven't seen it yet. Let's see what the future has to offer. So far, 160,000 German customers have already taken on Volkswagen's challenge to trade in their old vehicles for the newer Euro 6 engines. And I think that's something you're likely to see continuing into the future. So, as you would expect with a group night, here we get just a little bit of a taste of the excitement that we can expect tomorrow. We have visions from Audi, Skoda, Cupra, Seat, and, of course, Volkswagen. Now, we're not going to get all the information and all the details that we want tonight, but we are going to get some very exciting glimpses into what might be coming in the future. Here we have the Skoda Vision X, and for my money, Skoda have always produced some of the most exciting concept vehicles. They don't really follow any rules, and they are more than prepared to push them to the limits. I think what's happened is that the entire group has been challenged with the idea of producing cars that will answer the e-mobility call. And this is what Skoda has produced. This grille looks kind of familiar to me. Anybody watch the Land Cruiser review? I'd be interested to know what you think, but it's looking a little reminiscent to me. I really like the way that the styling looks so very futuristic. I think the car manufacturers can get stuck inside a mold where they're only considering what's gone before and not pushing forwards enough. Skoda, for me, has always achieved that bridge of managing to really look to the future and seeing what could be possible. This car looks very exciting to me, and I would like nothing better than to take it outside and see how it drives. We're really excited to have been joined by Oliver Stefani, who is a designer for Skoda and responsible, if I understand correctly, for this car. Please tell us, what was the thinking behind this model?
Well, first of all, it should be real Skoda, and we should also fit to the Kodiaq and Karak. So we want to have another member of our new SUV family, and we did everything so that it fits perfect to the other cars.
Now, a lot of the time we're shown concept cars and we get very excited about them, but they never actually end up in production. Honestly, are we going to see this on the roads?
Yes, you will see this as a production car on the road. Yeah, it will come out, and it will very close to what you see here.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm quite excited by that. So, can you tell me what your thoughts were behind the design of this car? Because it's quite radical.
Well, it's our design philosophy at Skoda, you know, to make, first of all, to make the car very compact, super proportions, yeah, big wheels, but then also bring this typical Skoda touch to it, yeah, this crystal clear lines, the crystal clear and nicely cut surfaces that you see also on the car, especially also in the front, yeah, and then with a very distinctive look in the front with our two-eye design.
Well, that's great. I have to say, I will be absolutely astonished if the interior design makes it through to production, but I really like very much the fact that you are pushing boundaries, and I've seen that a lot from Skoda. How do you see the future of cars evolving as it fits within Volkswagen's view of the future of an electric platform?
Well, Skoda has his design strategy, and also we will follow this design strategy also in the future to develop this always more and more, that it always fits to the brand and also to fits to the customers.
Well, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's really such a pleasure to meet the people responsible for this design. It looks fantastic. I'd love to give it a drive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the things that often gets to me about concept cars is that we don't see enough of those concepts carried through right to the production models. And okay, you can see some features here that are a little bit crazy, a little bit wild. Look at this door handle to shut the door. And down here we have a really interesting side pocket feature. But I have to say, in terms of the cockpit itself, okay, let's be honest, it's not my taste. But I really like the new thinking. Look at this. We have fabric on the dash. The top itself is really sculptured. Now, for those of you who are really familiar with Skoda, you will be aware of their crystalline design policy, and you can see that throughout the car. Now, obviously, this is not making it through to production, but the idea of a completely rethought through interior is very appealing to me. We test a lot of cars at Autogefühl, a lot of cars, and the commonality between them is sometimes a little disappointing. And it's always very exciting to me personally when you can see a designer that's, wow. I did not have anything to do with that. I have no idea what this does. But, oh, good grief. Look at this. That's astonishing. That is an iPhone charger built in to the dash. So if I push that back in there, Okay, I don't know if it's going to do it in reverse, but what it did is the entire display lifted up and then presented my phone to me, and I think we have two bays here, driver and passenger. That is fantastic. I think a lot of people would like that very much, not least because your phone's linked to the car, so you don't need to access it. You can get it through here. So, coming down a little further, we have some, these are purely concept. Obviously, they're not fully functional, but you see it's all about the styling. And I really appreciate the way that this styling is new, it's original, it's fresh, it's genuinely fresh. I'm genuinely excited to sit in this car, and I really want to see what of these concepts manage to make it through to production. Okay, so it's more than a little gimmicky, but still, you know, come on, it's a concept car, what do you want? Of course, there's a light show. Let's check it out. So, I already said I'm a big fan of Skoda concepts, okay. But, you know what, their strapline is simply clever. They're always looking for new ways to innovate. And I don't think you can find anything at Geneva this year that's more innovative than this realization as to what Skoda think you should be doing with your boot. So, about 2 weeks ago, I was lucky enough to bring you the launch of the brand new Seat brand, the Cupra. And I thought I'd seen everything that they had to offer. I mean, after all, they showed us their sports car, and it was really rather exciting. If you haven't seen it, please check out the link. It's pretty good. I thought that's all they had for now, but look at this. If you thought that sports cars had to be powered by petrol, think again. This is Seat's e-Racer. So ordinarily where we would find fuel tanks in the back of this car, here we have batteries. Look at the size of those cables. There's an awful lot of power to be supplied to this thing, but it's all being distributed directly through what you can just about make out in the middle. Now, clearly it would be the best fun in the world to be able to actually take this car out for a drive. Obviously, we can't do that at Geneva, but who knows for the future. Maybe if enough of you tell Thomas that he should drive this car, he might get the opportunity. Really, I'm very excited about the future of e-racing. Yeah, I know it doesn't have the sound, and you could argue that means it doesn't have the passion, but this is the future. And I'm really encouraged to see that Seat are pushing the boundary to establish where we can go with racing from here on in. So I'm somewhat reticent to do this interview because we have a time booked with you tomorrow morning, and I don't want to use up all of my questions now, but I'm in love with this car, so I have to know more about it. This is Seat's first electric race car?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are quite successful with the internal combustion engine race car on the TCR. We have been for the last years a winner also on the long endurance racing 24-hour race. We are very successful. And we said, what is the next level on racing? And the next level on racing definitely is the electric racing, which gives you totally new racing formats. Yeah, maybe you can go away from the racetracks, you can go also to more noise-sensible areas, you can go on stadium, whatever. And therefore we created this this Cupra e-Racer. This Cupra e-Racer, my target was for the team to be faster than today's TCR cars, that's important. Faster than the TCR car, but sustains a normal race distance. And this car has a peak performance of 500 kilowatt, which is 680 horsepower, which gives you quite a nice acceleration. Yeah, it's nice. And but you have to manage the energy because that's just the peak performance. The maximum constant performance is 300 kilowatt, which is even more than 400 horsepower. And with that performance, the car is quite rapid on the racetrack. I think one interesting thing just to mention is, normally you know all that cars in that class, especially Leon, has front-wheel driven powertrain. Here we have a rear-wheel driven powertrain. Due to the weight distribution, we have more than 50% on the rear. And with that performance of 680 horsepower, with that weight distribution on the front will not work, but on the rear it will work fantastically.
Well, I'm pretty sure you had me at faster. So, I love the car. I want to see it race. Is it actually going to be able to race? Where will it race?
Absolutely. That car is not a show car. It's a race prototype. And we actually built 2 cars in order to make all the testing. That means starting in May, we will go on the track, we will test. And our target is by the end of the year, on the last TCR race, at least to have a car which is able to participate on a TCR race, but in front, not in the rear.
Well, I'm very, very excited to watch what this car can do. And thank you so much for bringing it to us here today. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you got me. I'm a big fan of the family bus. I have 3 small children. That would be an end of that, but they have their friends, unfortunately, so I have to transport all of them right throughout wherever they need to go to. So this is very exciting to me. This is Volkswagen's view of the future. This is what they think I could be transporting my children and their friends around in. So let's take a look at this. Now, you would assume if Jonas can just sweep along the length of this vehicle, from what we currently know of electric transportation, that this would have a really, truly appalling range on it. But it actually can travel for 300 kilometers without needing a charge. Gotta say, I think that would do pretty much anything I need to do with it, but I want to take a look inside to see if it delivers up to its promises. So my heart is a little broken. It turns out this is not something that's been designed for me, but has been designed for mass transit, or I guess you could call it an upgraded taxi, significantly. Well, 200 units have been given by Volkswagen to the city of Hanover so they can see how people interact with this concept. But look at it. It's just fantastic. You have so much space, so much room, and it's so clean and nice. And really simple to keep that way as well. There's a luggage area in front, which Jonas will show you in a little cutaway. And the space that you have and the comfort that you have is fantastic. And if this can travel for 300 kilometers without needing a charge, then my feeling is we could very much be looking at the future of taxis. So a lot of times on Autogefühl, we're asked, why aren't there bigger wheels? Why can't we have bigger wheels? Well, Volkswagen have done their absolute level best to answer that challenge. These are some of the most enormous wheels I've ever seen. So, why?
Well, I think it's all about proportions. What you see here is the ID Vision. Is our future, basically luxury sedan, the flagship model of the Volkswagen brand, which will appear in 2022. Not in the way the interior is sculptured, but the exterior actually very much looks like our future plan. And Klaus Bischoff, our chief designer, obviously is obsessed about proportions. Volkswagen cars have great proportions, and the future electric cars basically offer even more potential for great proportions. So now, what you see here basically is a huge wheelbase, huge wheels which pull the optics of the car down. It looks like I would say a brilliant execution of a matchbox car.
Now, I have to tell you, we've been fortunate enough to speak with Carl before, and I'm slightly frightened by the size of wheels he may propose in the future. The styling looks extraordinary. Is this a question of style or engineering?
I think it's a combination of both. Obviously, you have to have the vision for the taste, which belongs to Volkswagen. I think Volkswagen has a very typical design attitude. Any line that you start needs to finish in the right place. It should have a meaning. It shouldn't be just there. It should be something which actually is a part of the car creation and the design lines. And you see basically most of the lines just float around. It's beautiful. And as you said, obviously it takes talent, and it takes obviously a great engineering team basically to put this into reality. So I think we have a great combination of a design team that knows how to do Volkswagen design for next generation. Actually is leveraging the potential of the platform to the utmost, and actually has a lot of freedom to create, which Dr. Dies and Frank Welch actually deliver to our design team. Very, very happy, I think, with the overall execution. I think we all see ourselves driving in those cars already. So I think for everybody who's interested, this car in very similar shape will be on the road by 2022. Maybe with little smaller wheels, but actually even the final execution of the wheel size will be much bigger than what you know today.
Well, one of the things that I find very exciting about that is I think for many people, the dream age of car design was the 1950s, where there were no limitations and people would simply design the car based on the aesthetic and the engine that it contained. And the opportunity that the electric drive brings to us is to reimagine what the car means to us. And Dr. D certainly touched upon that within his talk tonight. I see a lot of the future here in this car. Obviously it's a concept, not all of it will come through to actual production, but some of it will. And it's really exciting to see things being thought of in this way. How do you feel that this represents an evolution from where Volkswagen are at today in terms of where they are looking to get to?
Well, I think you can compare this step to a sort of a step that we've taken as a Volkswagen brand once in our history. The move from Beetle to Golf was a gigantic step in perception of car design and how cars do look like. Golf basically has formed and formulated a whole generation of cars that spun off the core idea of having a masterpiece of lines and preciseness in the cars, which basically lasts until today. If you look into Tiguan today, it still stems from a design philosophy from the original Golf in purity and simplicity. This one actually is the next big step, basically beyond our today's philosophy. It still is Volkswagen. You walk around this car and you feel automatically enthusiastic by this is a Volkswagen. It's simplicity, but actually it's simplicity of next generation. It's purity in lines. It will be timeless. It will be great to look at when you first own it, and it will be great to look at when you resell it after a few years into the marketplace. And the car is, I think, simple to understand. It's not very complex. And again, beautiful things, which we are actually big fans of already. Light is going to be the chrome of the future. So we've basically replaced elements that we used to decorate with a new idea, which basically light is replacing chrome. You see this floating all around the car. So we try to put as much of that into reality. Well, I do know what the car looks like in reality. I think we've done the utmost to really bring the spirit to life that you see today. And I think that's typical Volkswagen. This is not going to be a vision that's going to be forgotten. This is actually a car that we want to bring to life in its elements. So obviously some of the pieces that you see here, the swinging doors, probably are not going to be production sort of priority number one. The interior is the interior that we imagine to be happening after 2025. So you don't need a steering wheel, you don't need mirrors, because the car does the job for you. So what else can you do in the car? That's what you see here.
Okay, so bit of a personal question.
Yes.
But when you consider the future, there's a lot of it that's incredibly exciting. Is there a little bit that's also terrifying to you?
I think not terrifying. I think the good news is that we all know that until we get to the stage where you have no steering wheel, and the car really does everything, and the environment is ready for that car, that will take some time. I think what you see here actually is a vision for us as a brand. How would we use time of the driver? Because the true, let's say, the true luxury that we give back is time to the owner and the passenger of the car. That will happen a long time before steering wheels disappear. People will be able to drive on motorways at good speed, actually not necessarily having to touch the steering wheel, doing other stuff around them. That will be the next stage of our evolution, which for many people who spend a lot of time on the autoway, on the motorway, actually is a great sort of relief. And the question that we have to answer is actually, what do you do with your time? So what's the interface to your car? How can you use that time? So I'm really thrilled by the opportunities. I'm not scared. I think we'll stick to steering wheels for quite some while. That probably gives you relief, and you will be able to drive this accelerating car. This will be a very, very fun to own and fun to drive car. Very fast, with enormous performance, and obviously long range. So I think there's nothing that actually scares me. I think there's a lot of opportunities to position our brand where we want it to be. Very human. I think very much connected to our owners and actually exhilarating and exciting to own and to be in.
Well, I think the thing that excites me most is that we can still see that functionality meets design, because this is a future. We don't know what the future will hold, but we do know that change is very much something that we live with every day, especially in terms of car design. And I'm very excited to see the way in which the change has been embraced with the design of the car in a holistic way. I'm very excited to see what you will do with this car when it hits production.
As much as we are.
So I have one more thing to say. A lot of our viewers are very, very much in love with their cars, very much in love with Volkswagen as a brand. And this represents one potential future. Now, a lot of people who watch our channel may say, well, come on, that's a concept, you know, how is that grounded in reality? But I would want to say to them, this is only one potential future. And if you could say one thing to the Autogefühl viewers, what would you like to communicate?
I think it's the confidence of Volkswagen. I think you should simply rely on your brand. I think Volkswagen has had a great past due to the help of our customers and our fans. And I think we are shaping now a brilliant future for the Volkswagen brand. We're getting a lot of input, especially through our owners and through our fans. I think you see a lot of that coming through into the interior of our cars and into the way we create our cars. And I think everybody should be watching Volkswagen. It's a brilliant future, and we truly believe that the golden age of car driving has just begun. It's not over. It's just begun.
Well, you know what? This man is impossible to ruffle. It doesn't matter what you ask him. He has a really good answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks
for spending the time with us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for showing us your vision of the future. We're very, very excited to see where that will take us. Okay, I haven't checked with Thomas, so I hope this is all right. I asked my children before I came away to the Geneva Motor Show if there were any cars they wanted me to check out. And this is for my eldest son, Ted. Now, he's a bit of a fan of sporty cars. I said I'd see what I could do. What do you think, Ted? Our next car? This is Lamborghini's latest offering. Well, I think that we might have a bit of a problem popping down to our local supermarket to pick up some shopping in this, because I don't think there's a whole load of room. But I'd be willing to try, wouldn't you? We've been lucky enough to be joined by Mitja Borger, who is the designer of Lamborghini's entrance into the people mover market. Surprise, I know, but this car can carry how many passengers?
2 passengers.
2 passengers.
With a speed
Okay.
that is absolutely enormous, you know.
2 passengers with a speed that is absolutely enormous. I don't think there's any aspect of this car that tells me anything other than that it's designed for speed. Tell me about what's powering this car.
Electricity and dreams. This is our statement. This is my statement. It's the Lamborghini statement for an electrical Lamborghini of the future. This car is not for today, is not for tomorrow. I take the stone, we throw it into the future, and this car is really an invitation for also for the engineers. I think the car looks sexy, and now I'm looking for the technology, now I'm looking for the people to realize this car.
Wow, I think that's what most people could describe as a dream job. Now, we've known Lamborghini for a long time. The short, aggressive front and the long back with the engine. So the long back here is to accommodate the batteries.
Yes, there's the following concept. First of all, I am really provocative with the architecture because the seat position is really like a Formula One seat position or like in a Le Mans car. So you have a high-mounted footrest because I want to also storage some battery in front of the car to balance the weight. We have the substitution of the combustion engine, so we have a battery in the rear. But the clue for me is that we have an idea for the exterior shell of the car. Because the exterior shell is done in carbon fiber. It's including nanotubes, so you can use also the exterior shell as an energy storage. And that is amazing.
Wow, that is extraordinary. And that's the entire shell of the car. The whole thing is carbon fiber.
Yes. This is a potential source of energy storage in the future. And we wanted to give it an astonishing design, of course. You have asked me what is the design language of Lamborghini. First of all, there is this typical center line, the Gandini line. Marcello Gandini, I think 82 years old designer, my legend, my idol from Turin. We have presented to him the car in our Cento Stile, and this is also an homage for him. So we are calling this line the Gandini line, but there's also more about it. For me, there's the architecture of Lamborghini that you cannot mistaken for another supercar. There's the strong angle of the side windows that we have designed also here. But then I'm always saying my philosophy is expect the unexpected. So we have dressed the car completely unexpected with, of course, a new design language of Lamborghini but is also particular done for this kind of project. A glimpse of reality in terms of design strategy are the Y-shaped, the Y-shaped front and rear lights.
Show us those.
I can show you. When you look at the car from the front, come down here, you can see there's this Y shape, and this will be the signature of Lamborghini in the future. We have done already in a smaller kind of proportion on the Urus, we have done on the Centenario, but this will be the Lamborghini signature in the future.
So I guess the questions that I have for my world are one, can you mount a bike rack to this car?
I think yes, if you want. If you really need, I think we can manage.
That would be the coolest thing in the world. 2, I've seen before with such cars where the front will rise for speed bumps.
Of course, we have this technology in Lamborghini.
I need one.
For us, it's old school technology. We have it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing with us your vision of the future. I hope that this will be something that we have the opportunity to try at some point in the future. The design is fantastic. Really, it's very sleek, it's very linear, it flows, it makes sense to me. And I think no one more than you could want to see this car come through to production.
Yes. I'm an optimistic guy. I think the future looks really cool, and this is what I want to share. Thank you very much, and thank you that you like the car. Thank you very much.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time. Or any length of time you wanted to have. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure. And after several nights of 75 years of total pleasure each, you would say, well, that's pretty great.
So come on, Autogefühl guys, for those of you who are keeping count of your 12 members of the Volkswagen Group, we are now at the Zerouno Duerta. So, if you haven't heard of it, don't feel that bad. I'm not going to say that I have either, but there's a reason for that. There are very limited numbers of these cars available. Currently, 2 of these have been sold. The total production run is around about 5. But wow, look at this car. Everything about it says drive, and everything about it is tailored to the individual who wants to buy it. Now, I have the perfect person here.
No, not the perfect. Not the perfect.
Well, you know, okay, let me be honest with you. We were offered the chief designer for the brand, but I want passion that's unique and special, and this man has both of those things. Please tell the viewers who you are.
So thank you so much for the beautiful words. Here we are with the Zerouno Duerta, is the Targa version. Last year we present the Zerouno Coupe. 5 car, all already sold. And now this is the new car for this year. Also with this car we produce only 5 units. So all the car is completely bespoke. So we speak with our clients, we try to find a solution for make happen our clients. So this car is completed homologate car, so it's road legal, and we hope to do a great work.
Okay, so 2 important points there. One, you will have noticed that his accent is somewhat better than mine. But, you know, I'm British, so I have an excuse. And the second thing I wanted to point out to you is you will hear us an awful lot on Autogefühl talking about the way that a car is finished, because most car design is usually a compromise between what the designer wants and the budget that's allocated to achieve that end. This is a car that is not experiencing those concerns. Consequently, you have carbon fiber everywhere. Why? Because it's lighter, so the car can go faster. And everything about this drive says speed, power, performance. Now, I don't think I'm going to get to drive this car anytime soon. So, have you driven this car? That's my question.
Yes, it's amazing. So the car is really, really quick and it's all carbon fiber. So all the body is in carbon fiber. Top speed is really high, and also the performance on the track are amazing. So that's a great, great car. Yeah.
But we're still part of the Volkswagen Group, right? So, you know, I guess if you're thinking Chiran or maybe something different, this could be your different. Why not? Maybe my wife will think that's okay. We'll see.
Volvo is presenting the all-new generation of the V60. It is on the same new architecture platform, the SPA platform, and the XC60. Here now with the Estate first. The same will be coming also as a sedan again with the S60. And we'll take a look at it in exterior and interior and tell you more details. And let's continue here with the front Thor's Hammer LED headlights and with the LED daytime running light signature. This is the Inscription front grille with those vertical fins. Inscription is a top model, which is not recommendable in the interior, however. I'll tell you more about that later. Overall, you know, very beautiful front and also in line with the XC60, for example, because it's on the same, this SPA platform they're using for all of their bigger cars now. Then the Inscription model comes with 18-inch rims. They start with Inscription and the Momentum trim levels at first, more trim levels following later. Those ones here, the optional 19-inch, and you see it's a rather simplistic design in the side profile. The shoulder line is forming out, just starting from the middle and then raising to the rear part of the vehicle, and then those classic vertical, horizontal split taillights there from Volvo Estates or Volvo SUVs, so a clear design language. Overall, if you compare it to the predecessor model, this one looks a little sharper in general. Fake exhaust tips, by the way, it's almost standard nowadays in the industry. So, what do you think about the design of the V60? To me, it's quite pleasing. So, nice looking estate, definitely. And again, the outgoing model, I mean, it's not a super revolution design-wise, but it's definitely a little sharper, more precise in the design. The outgoing model is a little rounder, definitely in the shape. The biggest difference is, of course, that the headlights look totally different now. 4.76 m or 15'6" is the total length of this car. That means it has grown in about 13 centimeters. That's actually quite a lot. And yeah, we had a discussion lately if that's still mid-size. Yeah, I mean, this one is really against the Mercedes C-Class estate, for example, or the Audi A4 Avant, or then, of course, the BMW 3 Series Touring. The V90 then, the bigger, that one is, upper mid-size than E-Class, BMW 5 Series Touring, or then also the Audi A6. Here also we got another color with this darker tone blue. It's a very elegant color, or what do you think? So it's not really my Thomas blue, but I think a very, very beautiful approach. Also then with contrasting chrome roof rails right there. You see the window line is still rather upright. It's not, this typical boxy old Volvo design. They've cut that one out. Of course, it will be very interesting how that affects the room on the interior. We'll soon take a look at that. But as the car has grown in length, it definitely has some effect of that. And I'll close the hatch right here for you, that you can take a look one more at the side profile in this color. 530 until 1,360 liters is the capacity of the trunk or the loading area, and you can see those suitcases are fit in right here. So it's actually a good example of what it is capable of. You see, it doesn't have the typical Volvo boxy design as we know, but still you can see it can take a lot of stuff. And we'll soon also take a look at the trunk, which is empty, to compare it. See, this one here seems to flip down automatically. Again, we'll test it with the empty one. What you can already see here is how to flip the seats. It's on the right lower part. You can then press the buttons then to flip the seats around. Well, we can do it right here. Why not? So, let's press that one. There we go. So, and then when I put that one out, you can see how we can load things through. It gives you an even loading surface right there. And the same thing you can also do with the left side. So, yeah, let's take it out. Come on. Let's work it around. That looks better here with the bright interior. So then we have this full setup. Looks quite nice also in this clean, bright setup. This is, by the way, to split the trunk. We know that also here. You can put things in, and or maybe a backpack that has to stand upright. It's a good solution. And also, whoa. That one is locked. It's locked. So you can actually open that usually when it's not locked with this vehicle here. So one more thing I want to test is this one here. Put it like this as well. And let's just see what happens if that has any effect on the hatch then, because when we close the hatch, let's also check the child safety test. Whoa, that's way too much torque. Wow, that can actually behead you. Wow. That is really heavy stuff. I think that's an engineering fail. But then, see, this one is obviously not connected. So that seems to be all manual. Let's just close it again and see what it does. Yeah, it just stays up, you see. So I think that could be done too, that you have basically a connection then between the hatch and this cover lip. That would be quite nice actually, but they don't. Let's take a look at the interior. structured soft surface on the top part. Looks really great from the build quality here. Optional Bowers and Wilkins sound system. It's also good for performance from what we know. Not really suitable for bigger bottles here, so they cannot really stand upright. Then the interior also with the inscription, top trim level. Well, I think it's too expensive, you know. It brings the price up. 40,000 is the entry price at the moment. But then with the inscription, you can easily double the price, also with the bigger engine. Then I like the steering wheel, you know, with a dual tone setup. That's nice in design. And also the Scandinavian setup here with the matte wood interior right here, for example. Simplistic Scandinavian design. The seats here usually offer a lot of comfort at Volvo, no matter in which trim level you go for. I like the bright color, but of course Volvo is still... They want to be a sustainable brand, but they use still so much animal skin. That's a little contradiction then. So then let's get inside. Wow, and they are really, again, very comfortable. To me, the Volvo seat forms are among the most comfortable in the automotive industry. Again, no matter which car of those you pick, and also no matter which trim level. So I will, you know, I'm always taking the customer perspective for you and try to get you the best price performance deal for the vehicle, because I think, you know, it's not in my interest that the manufacturers earn more money. It's in my interest that you get the best experience for the least amount of money. And so the momentum trim level, for example, will also be fine. Here, by the way, the steering wheel can be adjusted, and they've smoothened up the process here. So wow, I can easily do that with one hand. Very nice. So I also feel that one of the first new Volvos, like the all-new XC90, was not that good from the build quality. That one, by the way, I like that more in the XC40, which is matte here again with the shiny black elements. Well, coming back to the build quality, here now when you look at it, besides those elements, they've stepped up the game a little bit more step by step with their new vehicles. Here also very wrapped tightly with the top dashboard. You get the digital instruments right there. So actually, you have two kinds of setup. It starts with 8-inch, just like this. And then optional, you get this one here, the 12.3-inch. However, at the middle display, you always get the 9.2-inch right there. That is standard for all cars. Soon more details to that, but we know it basically from other Volvo models so far. We'll take a quick tour of that. This one reminds of the V90, those vertical vents right there. And special to see here, this is this Swarovski style crystal shifting lever. I think for mid-size cars, maybe a little bit over the top. Start engine right here. They have removed, by the way, the function that you could turn it left, you just turn it right. And the driving mode, also in this crystal style, also gives you a nice acoustic feedback. And then you can pick the different driving modes, but usually they don't have a big difference. What a pleasant design again with the horizontal design lines here and the matte wood. Wow, that is really cool. Also with the bright interior. I just love that design-wise. The infotainment screen, by the way, it cleans up the interior somehow, but then again, the temperature changing while driving, you can get used to it a little bit, of course. You can also use the voice command. I'm not sure if it's working here now. I'm cold.
Temperature set to 21 degrees.
That worked pretty quick. I'm hot.
Temperature set to 20 degrees.
I'm cold.
Temperature set to 21 degrees.
Let's see. I'm very, very cold.
Searching music and radio.
Searching music and radio. Okay, very cold is obviously not, but you see, when I say I'm cold or when I'm hot, it changes the temperature to 1 degrees up or down. So that works pretty well. I mean, it's a good solution. Other than that, you can do it in those two different ways, or three ways actually. So you can adapt to it while driving. And here also with ventilation or heated seats, and my favorite feature, the heated steering wheel. Other than that, you have this home screen. You can activate assistance systems and stuff. This is the GPS. We can also maximize it. It's very responsive overall. We were quite satisfied with it so far. This is the home screen button. And on the right side, you can, for example, access the CarPlay. You can also connect your phone via Bluetooth. You have both ways available. And then, you know, when you hold the button here, you have this cleaning mode, so it doesn't react to anything. And then you can clean, because you see it does collect a lot of fingerprints for sure. Another nice feature is this volume turning knob. It feels pretty loose, but it gives you an acoustic feedback. And somehow feels funny, and you can spin it around, you know, not temperature DJ, but volume DJ for today. Other than that, just the mandatory buttons by law that are still left over here, for example, for the hazard lights. Then this middle console part, you know, we are not a fan of the shiny black. Why? Look at that, fingerprints, dust, scratches, and so on. Cup holders, adaptive, and again, wow, this contrast between bright and dark. I like this color scheme, contrasting one. But of course, you can also get it in pure dark. Electric handbrake, and then fixedly attached middle console, but very shallow right here. You cannot see it right now, I think, but just here where my finger is, then there are 2 USB ports. And for a big smartphone, yeah, I finally got a new phone, guys, so because someone was complaining that I had an old phone. Oh, look at that. I want to show you a smoothie. There is my cat. Oh, isn't she sweet? But this is just one, you know, this. Let me show you her sister. Here we go. That's her sister. There are 2 eyes. Oh, the tiger and the black one. Aren't they sweet? Then 12-volt power supply. And that's it for the middle console. So good that this car is powered, because then we can also open the panoramic roof. And it's really a very big one. Wow. Well, the opening here is not that huge, but the overall glass roof is really huge. So interesting option to go for sure. So we can close that again, and there's also a shade available. So when I press forward once more, here we go. Hey, nice moving effect on camera. Although, I mean, if you're in a very hot climate, that might still get a little bit too hot, but you know, they can adapt your buying choice for that. Another interesting detail is this frameless rear mirror. It's always looking elegant and also good for your visibility overall. I like it when they pay attention to those details for sure. Then the mirror right here, also with a light. You can check yourself out. Hey, what's up? So I think it's also a good solution. Overall, then the headroom in the front with the panoramic roof. I'm 1.86 or 6'1". Leave still some room over my head. If you need more space, then leave out the panoramic roof. So let's get in the rear compartment. Here we go. It's actually quite easy entry, but the car is still sitting very low, especially if you compare it to the Volvo SUVs. Then I had the seat as I would be sitting, which still gives me plenty of legroom. That's the big difference to the predecessor generation. I could hardly sit in the predecessor generation, legroom-wise. That's the 13 plus centimeters we also have in length, so definitely a big improvement. However, you see that the seat itself is pretty thick, so it's not the car with the best package. But if you consider the Volvo V90, for example, I don't see the V90 having much more legroom than this one here, for example. There's still a big tunnel because we also have all-wheel drive system, so in the middle part you don't sit too well. You have seat heating also for the outside of the 2 seats. Well, here on the inside, still working somehow also headroom-wise, even though we have the panoramic roof. We still have a lot of headroom left, also in the rear, even more in the side seats. For shorter terms, it's quite okay. And in general, for middle seating of a car, it's still quite reasonable, also if you compare it just with your feet with the middle tunnel. Here again, even more headroom on the inside actually. On the outside with the panoramic roof, then it's getting close. So for the outside rear seats, you should probably leave out the panoramic roof if you have tall passengers in the rear. Then we also have this middle console in the rear with cup holders for the kids and some more storage area. And on the back part, you can also open this ski hatch to load things through. You know, flipping the seats from the trunk is one possibility. This is a manual possibility. Do it right from here. Top tether on the back part as well. Isofix on the outside parts from the front part. Again, loading things through easily. Great quality here also. And wow, it's just a little bit heavy to put them up again, and the reason is that they want to have them fall down easily from the rear just when you press the button. So that's the downside of that. And another color, I always love to show you that, and this is also the Momentum trim level with 19-inch optional exhaust though, but you can see, for example, in the front there's a difference with the front grille. You have still the vertical fins, but they are not chrome polished like with the Inscription. It still looks quite elegant, I think, also with the contrast in the lower bumper there. And this is also then for the Momentum trim level from standard equipment. The headlights, you can see them right there. By the way, here, you see this design on here on the front hood? That's pretty powerful stuff, so great design job they did there too. And soon I'm sure also the interior on this car, and that proves the point that you can easily go also with a lower trim level. Let's look out for that. Different engines, of course, available, soon more to that. But first of all, a look in the trunk right here, because this one is done with dark fabric. Well, you can't see so much on camera, but you know, if you don't fancy the bright interior for the back trunk, then that's it. And here we can also open the lower part, optional also with a replacement tire. There we go. And also interesting, you can also press a button here at the inside. There it was for the tow bar. There we go. And it's fixed, and when I press the button again, there it is, it's loose, and I can flip it back in. Also a very nice solution for sure. The car also has, you know, the flipping seats function. I can show you it once more, because it's really nice. There we go, again with a 1/3, 2/3 split. So guys, this is pure Scandinavian style, like furniture design here in the Momentum trim. The base trim is rather, you know, more black fabric and stuff. You can get that too. But if you want a little bit more fancy, you can go for this one. So you have the matte aluminum style, for example, also as decor elements. You can go for that one. Looks a little bit more sporty and modern, but you can also go for the wood trim. And then, wow, this is really sofa lounge-alike. Those covers are called City Weave, and they also have been available for the V40. I think seen it before. Now with the V60 too, and this in fabric on the inside and leatherette on the outside, so no animals harm for this one, and it's a great quality. So if you then compare it to you know, the animal-based leather, you hardly see any difference. So this is a good example of how I can do things better. So, and also comfort-wise, those seats here are really superb, and I'm really thinking about seeing this, you know, sitting here, you know, with the new design, this Scandinavian simplicity and this, you know, lounge furniture. So if you ask, you know, you always ask me, what's your favorite car in the segment? And if I think about now, A4, C-Class and BMW 3 Series, they're all great cars, and especially, you know, the driving dynamics, and so I expect to be better, you know, for example, with BMW than with this one. However, we soon to test drive this one, of course, so I can't say anything about that yet. But from the interior styling and the comfort here, I really get the impression that this one will be my new favorite mid-size estate, or then later in 2018, than the S60, the sedan. So I'm really impressed, and you know, again, because this was a good price-performance deal. The City Weave, as far as I checked the price list from, for example, the XC40, the new one, are also an option then for the base trim, but they're not that expensive actually, so you can still go either for a rather subtle trim, the base trim, keep it rather one color, because for some it might be, you know, too much a little bit. Some say that's, you know, a little bit too extraordinary. But if you want it a little bit more spiced up, and then also with you know, the fabric you keep warm in winter and also cold in summer times, I think the car as it stands here right now, maybe when with the blue exterior, to me the perfect combination. So, and also the rear seats have the same design, and I just want to keep sitting here. You know, I'm walking a lot of the motor show, it's really stressful, and I can really relax when I'm just sitting here. But of course I want to show you how the rear legroom differs then, because the seat form was a little bit different, but they seem the same from the rear, and yes, indeed. So it's the same here from the rear also quite comfortable seating position here in the rear again. And what else? This car has a little bit more power here now, it seems. Not only 12-volt power supply in the lower part, which has this illumination. USB ports would be good there, for sure. On the top part here, you can also have a seat heating for the outer seats and also a separate vent control. So Volvo all about 2-liter 4-cylinder engines. Diesel, there's a D3 with 150 horsepower, or this one here, the D4 with 190 horsepower, and both are either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive optional. And then there's also a T5 petrol engine with 250 horsepower, starting with front-wheel drive. And then there are also top petrol and hybrid engines. Let's move on over to the hybrid car to explain you more about those. So there's the T6 with 310 horsepower, but also the T6 twin engine. That one is then the hybrid, then you get 340 horsepower, and you charge the car electrically here in the very front. And as a top model, there's also the T8 twin engine, then with 390 horsepower. And this is the cutaway model of the hybrid drivetrain. First of all, everything you see in orange here belongs to the electric part. And especially in the middle, it will soon become very interesting, I can promise you. And it also reveals how the all-wheel drive system is working. Let's start in the front in detail. So what you can see in blue is in dark blue right here. This is the electric motor. There's one in the front and one in the rear. This one is the one in the front. This is supporting the front drivetrain. So when you have a normal all-wheel drive, petrol or diesel, then it's basically front-wheel drive plus rear-wheel drive. No, we are a clutch in the middle, but here front and rear axle are disconnected basically. So there one electric motor supports the front wheel, which is mainly driven by the combustion engine. This one here is, to change the electricity, the transformators. Then in the middle part, the biggest one, this is the battery. And this is actually the part where you just have the middle tunnel, for transferring the front power to the rear as well. And when you don't have that, then there's a gap actually. And then they thought, okay, let's put the battery in this gap. So the middle tunnel remains, as we see in the interior, but you can hide the battery right there and don't lose, for example, don't lose trunk space height. And if we then go to the rear, this is where the main electric motor sits, because the rear axle is just powered by the rear by this rear electric motor. This is here for the charging infrastructure, so it goes all the way from the front to here. This one is basically the charging module. And this one is again the part we've seen in the front, the transformator, which is then, delivering the right proper energy for the electric motor. Pretty interesting to see that here in the cutaway model. And that again means there's no connection front and rear wheels. It's just electronically decided actually how much torque is getting where. And then you might think, okay, when the battery is depleted, what happens then? Then the normal combustion engine is always loading up again the battery in a way that is enough power to have the rear wheels. Why are they doing that? Well, maybe if you're stuck in an off-road situation where you really need the rear wheels because you otherwise won't get out of the mud, then you still have the all-wheel drive, although when the battery is depleted. That's not, of course, not really efficient. More efficient is to charge the plug-in hybrid. There are some statistics that a lot of people do not do that at all. But maybe when the charging infrastructure is rising at work and or at home, then you maybe also have more chance to charge this plug-in hybrid. The realistic driving figure, we couldn't test it yet for the all-electric drive. Not all electric, plug-in electric drive for this engine. Well, it will be about 30 kilometers an hour. That's my estimation for the realistic driving. Otherwise, it's supporting the engine to keep the rest of the consumption low. But of course, it really makes just sense when you are really charging it. Now to the conclusion. The Volvo V60 is for sure not a super revolution, but it has been finely tuned in every sense. So a sharper exterior, definitely. It was also time for renewal, new platform that offers you more versatility. It is not, again, not this boxy old Volvos with super much luggage space, but we've shown you it has actually enough versatility, also with flipping the seats and stuff. Now, as the car has become significantly longer, to one extent it gets a little bit, bigger just when driving in the city and stuff. But then again, you have way more legroom, especially for the rear passengers. That's the main difference now. Also, the interior has been tweaked, so we have a lot of great design style elements. You've seen also that in the lower trim levels you can make it super beautiful. And I think that's also a super unique selling point. So many premium manufacturers offer then or show us on the driving ends the super top trim levels and super expensive, double the entry price and so on. But the real key is to make the lower and middle trim levels that attractive that you say, I'm driving a special car, although I did not pay double the price of the entry price. And I think that will very well work here, as we've shown you with the Momentum car with the City Weave interior, and I'm really a fan of it. So one of my favorite cars here from the Geneva Motor Show. Really well done. Also with alternative drivetrains. The engines themselves from Volvo, the normal combustion engines, are usually really high fuel consuming. You have to keep that in mind. Therefore, the plug-in hybrid can already make sense. Of course, if you really have the chance to charge it quite often. And now, what about your feedback? I'm always looking forward to your comments. What do you think about the new V60? Then later this year, we'll also present you the S60, the sedan, which will basically be the same, just with a different roofline, less luggage space. And of course, soon we will drive this one, and then you will also tune into Autogefühl. The Honda CR-V is one of the most successful SUVs worldwide. Alone in the US, just in 1 year, almost 400,000 pieces. That's really massive. And here's the new generation. Has been out in the US in 2017. In 2018 also comes to European markets. We'll make a roundup about the all-new Honda CR-V exterior, interior, and what else is there under the hood, features, technology. We take a look. Let's go. The new CR-V is the same platform than the new Civic, by the way, and you can see in the front is a more harmonic design. First of all, in the predecessor it was basically split in two elements. Here, this round shape, a friendly face, and again one unit now with headlights and front grille. And the front grille has this active shutter technology, so when not so much cooling is needed, the shutters are closed and therefore improving then the wind efficiency. In the lower part you still have this crossover look with a rather rugged plastic fender. And the car is a little bit wider than before. 4.58 meters or 15 foot is the total length. It's 6 centimeters longer than the predecessor version. Also the wheelbase has been made longer a little bit. We'll check out how that has an effect on the interior. Here then also with massive 18-inch wheels in the two-color scheme. Looks pretty much technology oriented, so also a special highlight for this vehicle. Of course, all optional. Standard one comes with smaller ones. Then this rugged look here again at the wheel arches. The side profile is dominated by the dropping line. You see in light and shadow at the height of the door handles. And this very characteristic rear angle of the CR-V has been remained a little bit. The shoulders are a little bit wider here, and it looks somehow more elegant also in the side profile. You can see that the taillights are already beginning right here, and they have been changed even more. We'll take a look at that. Now this part has really changed. The taillights now a little bit Volvo-alike, aren't they? You know, with the vertical here and then the horizontal. Overall, it looks more chromish, definitely. So this is really different from the predecessor model. By the way, also the ground clearance is a little bit higher. So plus 4 centimeters, now at 20 centimeters. So for soft off-roading, that's also now more suitable. And there's a little wider track. So you see the whole car is also a little bit wider. You can see that from the rear. And let's take a look at the hatch. So non-electric here with struts. Well, wow, that looks pretty amazing. So pretty square dimensions. Here also with a replacement tire. And then there's this top cover. That is a little bit wobbly, so there's no rail on either side. But considering that, it's still quite nice. And then let's see, we can also flip the seats with those right in here, with those levers. And yeah, that works. And maybe this one needs a little push. There we are. But the front seat is too much in the front right now. But you can see here you can load things through. So pretty versatile in the use. And I suppose there's also possible to put this one here higher. Yeah, there we go. So you can put this one a little bit higher, and then you have an even loading through surface. That's very well done. Also quality-wise, it has been improved massively. And here, also in the white color, how you like that one? We're here with privacy glass. Looks like, of course, a little bit more spectacular. That won't be happening in real life with this black screen. And this is also the hybrid prototype with a new mild hybrid engine. It's pretty interesting to drive that one too at a later stage. Also see the hybrid logo right there. So what do you think? Which engine will you go for, and also which color would you choose? Let's check the interior in the front. So what do we have here? Looks quite nice. Soft materials at the inside of the doors, should be leatherette. And then it really looks like it's not matte wood, but you know, somehow even out, but it looks real actually. I think it's real wood. Also a nice accentuation, really some premium feeling. Well, those high glossy black, I don't fancy that much. You see it collects a lot of fingerprints there. Not too much space at the inside of the doors here. Shouldn't fit for two big bottles. Then at the inside, of course, base, you can also get fabric seats. I guess in US also leatherette. This one I think is the full animal skin spec. But the interior itself, you see there are completely new seats. Push them a little bit backwards, soon finding my seating position. The steering wheel, we know that basically from the Civic, also with those transparent buttons here, left and right, for example, for cruise control on the right. And then you can see there's a digital screen here now. So you have, at the maximum setup, a 7-inch screen left. You can see here digital speed. And also a 7-inch screen on the right. So this one would be in the top trim. So infotainment-wise, a big upgrade. And the shifting lever you can see below that has been integrated like a van, like you know, so from the vans, for example, basically integrated in the middle console. Here in this case, the automatic gearbox. But I mean, why not? You can easily access it by this way. Then let's get inside and see how the seat can be controlled and steering wheel and stuff. This one here to manually pump it up. So maybe, you know, just a little bit to sit a little bit more straight. Electric then for the lumbar support. Then the steering rack right there. So it can be also controlled in the reach. So you can find a good position here. And well, the first impression is that it's actually quite comfortable to sit in. You know, you have this typical high seating position as you know from the SUV. And here the back part can also be controlled manually. And it feels actually quite grown up, the CR-V. Before that, it was also, let's say, a good standard SUV with a good price-performance ratio. They also intend to keep it that way, so not everyone will buy it in the highest trim level. I think that's also pretty much fine. So it gives you a nice high standard seating position, so that you get a feeling you don't need anything that is basically bigger. So that's really interesting. So this would be you know, the way that I would be seating right here. By the way, here also a big mirror with a light too. So you know, for some that's very important that we have the light right there. The visibility to the front is a little bit limited. It's not too big, the front screen. That is due to the design, and also the, you know, the front hood is pretty bulky. Here on the top, by the way, we have let's say it's not real hard plastic. It's some leatherette cover. So overall, they have improved also the build quality. What I'm questioning a little bit, well, you have this horizontal stress in the cockpit. You will soon see that also from the rear. But then again, you have a lot of different design elements here. Maybe that's a little bit too much, a little bit too disturbing. So it's not really a simplistic design. Now the interior overview from this perspective. There you can see the new horizontal stress of this cockpit and also the integration of the screen. The infotainment system was so far the weakness of a lot of Hondas. You can see here it could react a little bit faster, but visually it is way more attractive than before. That's important. You can also connect the phone via Bluetooth. That's a you know, standard function for sure. Let's get to the home menu. What else we can see? It's also the smartphone connectivity. That one then will be enabling you to connect also, you know, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Again, the nice use of the wood here. I think that's my favorite trim also for the vehicle. The climate unit is still separately, so you can easily control it while driving. Econ, there will be a button to reduce the throttle input then. And here again, the automatic shifting lever, you can easily press down. Sport mode will turn up the RPMs a little bit more. Electric handbrake. Then we also have a seat heating available. And in the lower middle console, we have a 12-volt power supply. And beverage holders, they are adaptive. Very easy to reach, actually. Seems quite ergonomic to me. And wow, how much room do we have right here? Another 12-volt power supply. USB 2, so to connect with your phone, and HDMI. And again, so much space in this vehicle. It's, you know, this vehicle is not screaming out. It's in some ways really simple, but then again, really versatile and practical, especially for families. And so for your glasses, you can put them right here. And hey, that's an additional mirror. I think there you can see Michelle. Maybe you can see, you know, your children in the rear, for example. I'm not sure, but because there it is. So this is maybe you don't have to lean back all the way. Then hey, what you guys are doing? Stop that! You just have to watch here. Then just like slide in and look there. And stop that! Don't do that. Now to the rear, by the way, door closing sound. Could be a little bit better, couldn't it? But what's really great? Wow, that's really 90 degrees opening. And also, you know, some nice visual elements here. Soft touch also right there. Really great from the quality. And how easy is that to attach child seats, Isofix on the outside seats, for example. So easy to access this vehicle here. That's really great. So well done, Honda. Then let's get inside. And how do I sit here in the rear? Wow, that's amazing. That's really such a good package and will be so important for the customers of this vehicle. Also in the headroom. I'm on wheels 86 or 6'1". That leaves me plenty of headroom. And probably this is the best thing of the new car. You know, wheelbase a little bit longer, cars a little bit longer, but then it doesn't, you know, get too bulky on the exterior. You know, as you can control the angle of the seat here, this is the most upright seating position, and it's really super comfortable in here also for tall people. I have to say, it's maybe one of my favorite cars here at the booth. So I think the sales success will continue. It seems to be, you know, improved in so many different respects. And this one here probably my favorite aspect of the vehicle. By the way, here's the seat belt for the middle seat. It's quite funny construct. Well, you have to do it like this. Then you have an armrest right there with cup holders. And it's really interesting that you can change the angle of the rear bench. That's really helpful to relax maybe more or to sit more upright, like this and this. This is the difference. And then you can also put it to the front like this. You see that the lower part goes down a little bit. That is enabling the all-flat loading surface. There's, by the way, also an electric tailgate available. Not the manual here one today, but optional also electric. And what's interesting, this one here is also available now as a 7-seater even on the European market. This one here is the 5-seater today, but you can also get a 7-seater. And, very interesting, 2 USB supplies for the rear passengers. Also, I think, so many good ideas that are basically simple, but just helpful in everyday driving. So, what's under the hood here? Well, no hydraulic struts, so I have to search where... I can't find where I can put it up, so I'll just hold it for a second. Well, this one is the 1.5 turbo petrol engine, 190 horsepower, mainly for the European market. And for example, in Russia, you can also get a 2.4-liter natural aspirated engine, also with 190 horsepower. And the new one will also soon be available, a 2-liter mild hybrid, so naturally aspirated with mild hybrid technology with 215 horsepower. So looking forward to drive all of those engines. And now to our conclusion for today, the Honda CR-V. Well, front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive will both be available. Also manual gearbox and automatic. They mainly use the CVT automatic transmission. Looking forward how that one has improved. But I think the most important thing as well, exterior-wise, just a little fresher basically. Looks a little bit more modern, but they have, you know, remained a rather an evolution. The interior with new infotainment optional if you want to have so. Upgraded materials, so more quality of materials inside, that you don't have the feeling of driving, you know, a cheap SUV. This is really, you know, a very good standard. And of course, the biggest thing is also with the new generation, more room in the interior, and that's really convincing. So the usage of space, because the car is not super long, but with this still compact SUV, you have room for, you know, the whole family basically. Also now optional as a 7-seater even in Europe. So I think that was pretty convincing, and the overall package, as the price will probably remain relatively the same, the overall package of this car is really very good, and that's what making it also so competitive. So what do you think? Give me the feedback about this vehicle, and let's go on further to more highlights.
Okay, I'm more than a little bit excited. I've been waiting for this moment. We're here to take a look at the brand new BMW X4.
Don't you know, it is getting hard, 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 hard. I need secrets to be a part of me. I need hard I need hard.
Now in its second iteration, the X4 is actually built on the same platform as its smaller sibling, the X3. But that, according to BMW, is where the similarity ends. Well, I don't know if I'm going to completely agree with that. If you stand directly in front of this car and take a good long look at it, you'd be hard pushed to point out many of the differences from the front. But if it isn't broken, why fix it? And you'd have to say that is a very nice looking front of a car. They've done enough to make the front look businesslike whilst keeping the very, very distinctive and classic BMW front. Now, the X7 should drop later on this year, and we're expecting that to have a very similar looking front as well. But what's really great about this car and all of the X series is the way they develop the concepts going through the vehicle. Let's take a look and see what happens around at the side. This is where the X4 really starts coming into its own. Now, you may just about be able to see the overall height of this car has actually dropped slightly from its predecessor, whilst it's grown in length, and not by a small margin either. So I think you can agree that that really gives this car a sporty feel. And that's very important because I understand that they're going to be going for the same kind of customers as the GLC Coupe, really, and the Jaguar F-Base as well, I think. And with that, they're going to need to push the sporty elements. What I like about the side is the way that it has been drawn out. So even though it's big, and when I say big, take a look at these wheels here. It doesn't look bulky. It still manages to look elegant and graceful. Now, obviously it's going to come in lots of different flavors. This model in particular is one of the two M's. There's going to be one petrol, one diesel, although I think initially only the diesel one will be available in some markets. Which engines are available where is always a little bit complicated. We'll have more information on that when we do the first driving event. But for now, you can see how the M styling has been applied to this car. It was already looking pretty good, and I think Jonas is going to take some shots of a couple of other models so you can see how that's been applied. But here we get, I think, the car at its absolute best, because the sports styling of the M series, of course, who doesn't want this little badge right on their car, really does fit the style of this vehicle. Now, BMW will tell you that it's not only that it looks sporty, it's also very practical and designed for both fun and fast and off-road driving. That's a lot of promises to live up to, so it will be very interesting to see if it manages it. But you certainly can say that the style promises an awful lot. Following this lovely flare through to the back, these LED rear lights have really been slimmed down, and they now bend right the way through from the side into the back. This car is an unbelievable 8 centimeters longer. That's about 3 inches, and that really adds to the way that the car looks on the road. From the side, you might expect something a little abrupt in terms of how it translates into the back, but I'm very pleased to say that it's been superbly blended in. Now, I don't know about you, I'm getting a little bit of the GLC Coupe from the rear of this car. It looks really good I particularly like these styling details up here. They just add a little more character and help break up the back. And again, it's one of those features that really allows you not to recognize how big the car actually is. It makes it look about as visually small as you can whilst being very imposing. They want to put the statement of the weight lower in order that the car looks grounded and really sturdy, really capable of going off-road, and then remove that sensation of weight from the top in order that you still find the car looks fast. And I really do think they've done a superb job with it. What do you think?
Don't you know it is getting low, it is getting hot, 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 hot. I need secrets to be a part of me.
So now I'm pretty sure I know what you're thinking. If you like the X3, that's a really important deciding factor in whether or not you're going to like the X4. Because, again, if you sit in here, you could very much think that you were sitting in the X3. The styling is very similar. For what it's worth, I actually do like it. And until I looked down at this area, I thought finally we'd found a car with no piano black in it. But no, BMW have put that across the central console as well. Never mind, it is what it is. Well, let's talk about the seating position first. These seats have lots of adjustability, and I'm hoping that's going to include to the bits at the side because they are very, very close at the moment. And I'm not quite sure how that adjusts. So I'm going to assume that it adjusts and let them off with that, because I'm not the world's biggest person, but I am being held very tight at both sides and it's not massively comfortable. So I think possibly somebody previously has adjusted them, and yes, feeling back there I can see they definitely are adjustable. I just don't know how at the moment. So the cockpit is digital and they have these rims on them. Now I don't know what you think, but to me they look somewhat reminiscent of what Audi were doing with their digital displays a couple of years back. I think it's interesting because it certainly does make it look more characterful than just a flat screen. But then again, it does limit your customization. Once you start physical elements within digital displays, it means you are very limited in terms of what you can display on there. But as long as you have everything that you need, I guess that's absolutely fine. So, coming through over on the dashboard, we've nice metal features. This car, I think this is actually rubber, not leather. Feels nice, it looks good. It really resonates quality. As with the X3, everything about sitting in this car just says this is a quality vehicle. It's well made, the materials are very good, and it's nicely put together. I feel very happy. Look how much headroom I have. More than sufficient. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters, and I have plenty of space above my head. And that's with this panoramic sunroof that I have above me. So that always takes out a little bit. The driving controls are very much what you'd expect from BMW, and so is the experience of sitting in this car. It is all clean, uncluttered, and focused. Everything about this wants me to concentrate on driving it, and ultimately, that's what I want to do. Alright, well, I don't think I'm going to be surprising anyone when I tell you that once again, the swooping roofline has killed my experience of the back. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm nicely wedged in between seat and roof. So, unless you have very short friends, this really isn't a car for backseat passengers. In fairness, the project leader did tell us when we interviewed him that this was much more of a car for single people, possibly slightly older. They're clearly going to need some disposable income, and not a family car. There are other BMWs for that. So I don't want to be unduly harsh in terms of what happens back here. If I had to sit here for a short trip, it would actually be fine. It's just not going to be something I'm going to want to spend a lot of time in. That said, the finishing and the materials are nice, exactly as with the front. Everything is clean, uncluttered, and it just works. Possibly could have done with a USB charge point, but we do have the 12 volts still. And as we already said, I don't think you're going to have too many people sitting back here. Well, you'll be pleased to hear that the boot space has gone up. There are now 525 litres of load space back here, and that is 25 litres more than the predecessor. That's the extra length of the car giving us that extra room. Now, you might well look at the space back there and think, surely they could have given some of that to the rear passengers, but of course, because of that sloping roof, that is as far back as you can put the seats, and I am happy to say legroom behind has increased as well. But look at this load space. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the X3, controversially, for me at least, being a smaller brother, actually has more load space available to it than the X4. But this is the car you want to drive, because the whole idea behind it is going to be that it's sporty everywhere it goes, on and off-road. To help with that, we now have a much lighter chassis. There's a lot more aluminium in this car, and the aerodynamics really allow it to travel at greater speed as well. So, for what it's worth, I think if we're talking about a person or a couple owning this vehicle, they don't really care about who sits in the back, and they do care about how much stuff they can put in the rear. So this will provide you with ample space to take whatever you want to when you're going off on your grand tour right throughout Europe. Let's have a look underneath this floor panel and see what we're hiding back here. Well, first things first, let's mention this gas strut on the floor. That's a really nice feature. A lot of cars don't bother to include that. Obviously, it adds cost, and that adds to the retail price. But if you actually have a need to access things underneath the panel, you really need a way of doing that easily. This is lovely. It's a parcel shelf for the top, which is not currently fitted, but it has a storage area underneath the floor. What a great idea. That means when you don't want it in, there actually is somewhere proper to store it. And look at this. We have extra storage underneath that as well. This, I believe, is the extension to the parcel shelf to actually fill it up, and you can see we have even more room there as well. So really nicely designed, really nicely thought of, and really well finished. Nice. The similarities with the X3 don't just stop at the platform. The engine range is exactly the same as well. So it won't surprise you to learn that all of the best loved engines from that series are also going to be the best loved engines of this series. So, although we do have a fairly extensive range and lineup, when it's going to be introduced and where it's going to be introduced is still being decided. I've been joined by Joachim Dunkel, and he is a very happy man today because he is the project leader responsible for the brand new BMW X4. Welcome to Autogefühl.
Thank you very much.
So, I think let's start off with the obvious. This is a very good-looking car. What were you trying to achieve with the redesign of this car that's distinct and different from the X3?
This is one of the main messages. It's really different to the X3 because this is much more sportier than the X3. We address it also to different customer than the X3. When you're going to the hedge, you see how sporty, how athletic this car is, and this is one of the main topics from the exterior side, yeah.
Excellent. Well, it really does look very athletic. Can you tell me a little bit about the drivetrains that will be available for this?
We will start with two Benziner and also with two diesel cars. And in the summer they will extend to additional two diesel car engines.
Now, you told me that the customer is going to be a little different to the X3, so I have to ask, what is the target customer for this car?
I would say, when you are looking from the age side, I would say people who are living for their own, not having a big family, they will using the X4. Then when the family is in first priority, then they will, for example, change to the X3. But then when the kids are growing up and they're not a member of the family for every day, then they will also join, also going back to the X4.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. I have 3 small children, but I want one.
Really?
Now,
Okay.
I don't want to let the kids in it, though. Just me. I won't even tell them I have it.
It's more or less a race car for the father, I would say.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, the engine specs right off the bat look very good from a performance perspective. How have you managed to match that also with the fuel economy? Because they also look good on paper.
That's the same like the X3. When you see the consumption of the car, for example, you can absolutely compare it with the X3. There's no differences, and that's in the moment it's very accepted from the customer side.
Well, that sounds very hopeful. So I have to ask you, what features of this car would you really like to draw our viewers' attention to?
For this car, I really like the exterior because when you see it also from the hedge, from the tail, I would say you can see the muscles, you can feel the muscles, you can feel the athletic of this car, which is much more my favorite of this car.
Can we take it off-road?
Of course. And you can
Really?
Yes, of course, and you can also take it on the racetrack. I tried again in Talladega, and it was absolutely great to drive this car with 240 kilometers at Talladega racetrack. It was absolutely great.
Yeah, I'm not jealous at all. That doesn't sound interesting to me, no. Wow, well, so you're inviting us, Autogefühl, we can come and do the same?
We can do this in summer when we have the EPV, that's the international press presentation for this car. Yeah? We are welcome.
Perfect, well, watch out for that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I have to say, I think it looks absolutely superb. If it drives as well as it looks, I think we're all going to be very happy.
It sounds good. Thank you very much. You're welcome. We'll see us.
With some car designs, it's really difficult to see exactly what the intention was when it took place. With the second generation of the X4, I'm very happy to say that that simply isn't the case. It's very clear to see what the design brief was. It's sportier, it's more aggressive, it's more agile, but it fits perfectly into the current X lineup. And I like the synthesis in the range, making everything uniform. Okay, so there are some features that I think maybe could be tweaked a little bit, but certainly not in terms of its exterior aesthetic. Wow, it's just a nice car to look at. And if the drive promises to deliver everything that it says it will, then I think we're going to be very happy with the car overall. On the interior, well, like I said, I don't think you want to be too hard about the lack of room for backseat passengers. It really isn't that type of a car. I'm really happy to see the increased load space in the boot. That's very nice, and the driving experience seems like it will be very comfortable. Now, we had a word with the project leader, and he told us that he had taken this car out at Talladega, and that there was also a possibility that that would be where the world premiere driving event will be. I'm certainly excited by the prospect. We'll just have to wait for now. This is the brand new Peugeot 508, which has had its world premiere here at the Geneva Motor Show. Now, if it looks like bits of it are a little familiar to you, that's because it's borrowed quite heavily, I think, from last year's Instinct concept. That was a shooting brake concept, and you can see through in the back how those styles have really impacted on this car. Now, a lot of people weren't particularly that impressed by the predecessor of the 508. One of the common criticisms that it came in for is it just didn't quite always work with the styling. Well, I think we can all agree that Peugeot have worked very hard to make sure that they've refreshed this car thoroughly. We take a look, even from the front, you can see that it's a much more stylish approach. This is a car making a statement of, come on now, it's time that we took on some bigger competition. And I think they're going to be gunning for the likes of the BMW 3 Series. You might think that's a bit ambitious, but when you compare pricing, I think it's going to come out really quite favorably. These wheels are a really good place to start. You may remember on the previous 508, the wheels never quite looked completely comfortable in their housing. This is a much nicer job of making the whole thing blend and work together. The result means that the car looks a lot more sophisticated than its predecessor, and actually a lot nicer to look at. As you follow the design line right through the side and to the back, you can notice the car has a much more sculptural feel to it. If you see the way that this sweeps through into the rear, you really do get that shooting brake feeling. It's almost coupe-like. It looks nice, but there's always a price to pay for this sweeping roofline, and it will be interesting to see the impact that we've had on headroom at the rear. Coming through to the back of the car, well, a lot of this is going to come down to personal taste, obviously. But this, for me, is where the car loses it a little bit. I do not like this back. I think if you're a fan of the traditional French styling, then you will find a lot to recognize here. These lines and the way that the style has kind of been drawn and elongated across the lighting panel, I think is very characteristic. There's almost a little bit of 1980s Citroën about this to me. Now, you might be a fan of that. it's not quite for me. But overall, I have to say, I think the styling is really, really good compared to the predecessor, and certainly you would not be embarrassed to pull up in this car. If the interior has been made over as nicely, I think we have a lot to look forward to. So we have a very interesting mix here of the old with the new. The new, I really like these frameless doors. That feels modern and stylish and minimal. The old, well, the instrument display doesn't really work for me, but more on that a little bit later. Let's take a look at the styling on the trim to start with. We have this wood effect paneling, very traditional leather stitched armrests, not particularly nice finished door pocket, but you know, okay, nothing to get too upset about, but nothing to get too excited about either. There's a lot more to look at inside though. Jonas is going to come around the other side so we can take a look. Welcome to the latest iteration of Peugeot's iCockpit. Well, this is definitely going to divide some opinion. They certainly wanted to make a statement with this car, and I don't really recognize that you can see that anywhere more than with the front dashboard layout. You're either going to love the uniqueness of that, or you're really not. Well, we have a 10-inch touchscreen here, which is not quite as responsive as you might like, and we have a 12-inch display for the driver. Now, I think what's going to divide opinion here will be that this might not look to everybody's taste, but I'm immediately thinking that the way these controls are laid out is actually very intuitive. You can reach for them very easily, rather than having to look down and grope amongst the controls for the thing that you're trying to affect. Whether or not, I mean, this is a display car. This is brand new and on the stand today, and it is being cleaned while we work. And already, I'm sure you can see in the camera, we have fingerprints all over this and a nice layer of dust that's been attracted to the screen and this flat shelf. So I think that really might look pretty rough after you've had the car for a few weeks. But functionality is always the most important feature, and I like the thinking here. I would like to try this while driving to see if it's as intuitive as it looks, but I bet you it does work really well. Now, slightly further down, we have a drive mode selector here, we have an automatic gearbox, and pretty much exactly what you'd expect further back. The whole cabin feels a lot more refined than the predecessor, and it does deliver a lot more in the way of features than the car that it's replacing. As to whether or not you're going to go with the styling, I think that's going to be a very personal thing. But it is unique. It's very, very different to its competition, and I think that's going to appeal to a lot of people. Coming through to the back of the car, we really do have the opportunity to see how this headline is affecting our space. Well, I don't know if you can see the top of my head there, but my head is actually right up against it. I am 5'10" or 178 centimeters, and I would not enjoy being in this car in the back for any extended period of time. There is always a price to pay for that sloping roofline. If you're buying this car with a view for backseat passengers who are over, I would say 5'10" in height, make sure you try the back first. That said, it's actually a spacious and comfortable compartment in all other respects. Look at this fantastic amount of legroom that I have here. The seats are very firm and comfortable. I didn't mention while I was in the front, the seat is also very nice for the driver. Good viewing position on the road, holds you nice and firmly, and it's well made. We also have 2 USB charge points back here for your passengers to make sure their devices are kept charged, and the quality of finish actually feels really good. It looks like they've put an awful lot of effort into making sure that when you travel in this car, you understand that it is a nicely thought through piece of work. Well, this is what 437 litres of load space looks like. It's nicely delivered. As you can see, if you pan the camera around here, we have a slightly unusual position for the subwoofer. I'm assuming this is a subwoofer for the main compartment as opposed to a speaker for people that you actually put in the boot. But underneath, we can see that, hooray, we still have a spare tyre, and as much as it's the trend now to not fit cars with them, I always like to see it. So we've got plenty of room back here, and I really don't think that that's going to be a reason to not buy this car, not least because it's a huge improvement on its predecessor and it's very competitive with the other cars in this bracket. Will that be enough to convince people that this is something they want to give a go to? Well, maybe it will. Okay, well, this being the auto show, unfortunately I can't tell you exactly which model that we're looking at, but I can tell you that at launch there are 6 petrol and diesels, and they range in size, but they produce from 128 horsepower right up to 222. So there's going to be more than enough range there for everyone to find something that's suitable for them. I think further down the road we're also going to see the potential of an electric model, but to start with, just the petrols and diesels. I think there's going to be more than enough for everybody. So that's a brief look at the Peugeot 508, a complete redesign of an old favourite. Now, I think the real challenge with this car in the redesign was to make it convincing, was to really give us something that we could form a new relationship with, and you would have to say that Peugeot have totally succeeded where that's concerned. The styling is really nice. It really updates and freshens the car and actually looks like the future of the brand and not the past, which I have to say I think is a good thing from a design standpoint. I'm really never going to be completely happy with this, unfortunately. It makes the car look great, but the space in the rear is just not sufficient for your average sized person. With the interior styling, clearly that's a matter of taste. Pretty sure you know what I think. I'd be very keen to hear what you do. So, for me, outside, superb. Really like the design cues. Inside, I'm going to need a little bit more convincing, but maybe I'll get that when we take it out for a drive.
The Mercedes C-Class is the most sold model for Mercedes, over 400,000 times in 2017, and so also you. A lot of customers are affected by the product update changes. This is the C-Class facelift, and we will explain you everything in detail, especially also with the C43 and also the new diesel hybrid here on Autogefühl. And let's dig deeper into the details in exterior and interior and also what's under the hood here. Let's go! The main difference in the front of the C-Class is always which line are you picking. Are you going with the executive line, which has the typical Mercedes star on top, which you can unfortunately also bend. And if you go for the avant-garde, the AMG line, the base model, or here for the C43, you have this more modern looking front grille. With the AMG line, you get those diamond pins. They are more glossy. Here with the C43, you have 2 fin horizontally there, next to the big star logo, and then you have just a matte black front grille with this pin design. They've also changed the lower bumpers on all models basically. Here in the C43, the sporty model, of course, a little bit bigger with bigger air intakes, and also the LED daytime running light, this here, has been changed a little bit to have a more fluent effect. The headlights come standard with halogen, an optional LED, and the top trim is also with a LED high beam. 4.70 m or 15'4" is the total length, and the side profile has rather been untouched. There's some new rim choices, for example. The C43 comes with 18-inch standard. Those ones here are the optional 19-inch in a black look, so to be a little bit more evil. You can also get the so-called night package. Then you can also see that the side covers here of the mirrors are in glossy black, also all glossy black around the door frames. So if you want that extra aggressive look. Other than that, the main design is below the door handles here, and this classic sedan shape here for the C-Class. But of course also the estate will be coming with this facelift, so everything we're telling you both counts for the sedan and the estate model. A base C-Class starts at about 30,000, just a little above that, and the C43 is double the price. And what else you get? For example, a big black diffuser, then those exhaust tips, because they are all fake. The real exhaust is hidden behind that C43 logo, and then you have this small wing, and well, we've seen it recently with the CLS. I think it does fit the design a little bit more if there's just no rear wing. But then again, they want to attach something more sporty with the AMG model. And also the rear LED design has been redesigned just a little bit, so you have an update right there. What do you think? How do you like the facelift so far? Let me just show you the boot space of a C-Class sedan, here also with the 43. Well, of course you're a little bit limited in height, but it's basically, you know, mid-size segment sedan space, and then you can also flip the seats with those handles here on top part. They're right there, a little bit cheaply designed, I would say. And then you have to go around and have this split here. You can put this 1/3. You also have a ski hatch available, but then you can also load longer things through, and it's quite even, the surface. So what's powering this thing? A 3-liter 6-cylinder, not a true hand-built AMG engine one from stock, but it does deliver power 4.7 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. And this now has 390 horsepower. That's 23 horsepower more than pre-facelift, so a little power boost for that one here. By the way, the C43 always comes with all-wheel drive. I think it's also the better everyday pick than the C63. It drives a little bit more harmonic, and the base all-wheel drive setup is 60% in the rear and 30% in the front, so you still have a rear-wheel bias. However, you know, it's more suitable also for slippery conditions because it still has a lot of power. Let's take a look inside, because most changes have been happening inside. This one here with the AMG trim, we got this matte aluminum trim right there, or aluminium if you like to have me spelled that way. Optional Burmester sound system that's giving you quite good sound. Then you have different seat available if we move on over there, because it starts in the C-Class with the base seat, then there's a sport seat available. That one is standard for the C43, and those ones are the performance seats, and I can strongly advise you against them. They look sportier, they look greater, but the normal sport seats will be more comfortable. Also, they have sustainable seating materials available in every C43. The base in the middle here is Dynamica microfiber, and the outside then is a leatherette, the so-called Artico. So they have great choices there. Those ones here, the optional full animal skin package. Then let's get inside. And, well, it's never that good to be on camera then, because you can, you know, have to reach over there for the seat controls. But when the door is closed, those seat controls are pretty handy because you can actually see what you're doing. However, you know, from seating-wise, there's some space still left with the headroom, 1.86 m or 6'1". But of course, it's still a mid-size sedan, so there's not too much headroom, especially if you have the glass roof inside there. Of course, it leaves a little bit light in there. What else is new? The steering wheel, especially with the AMG. This is the new AMG steering wheel design with this 2-spoke design right there, flat bottom and perforated sides. Those ones here are also available in Dynamica microfiber. I can also advise you for that, because then you have a softer and better grip, even if you wear gloves in winter. Then you can see this is actually the biggest change with the screen. I will soon tell you more about that. First, let me show you how to control them, because here, from our perspective, you can see with the left thumb I can control all of the left screen. That's new now with all of the new coming infotainment systems. And also the Distronic is on the left side. If I don't have the separate lever anymore, so the adaptive cruise control can be set right there. And then for the right screen, I have my right thumb here, and then I control everything which is in the right screen. And to get a better perspective on the screens and what screens are available, let's change our perspective. So base, you would only have a small screen in the middle, 5.5. This one, you're optional, the 12.3 full digital instruments. Again, you do not have to get it, but you can actually. And then you have, you know, a lot of flexibility what to show there. For example, you can connect a Bluetooth phone there. Here, for example, also settings for the head-up display. You can pick different styles, like for a sportier style, for example, or also a classic style. And the advantage is that also GPS commands can be displayed there. Well, I'm a friend still of analog displays, even though this one looks quite fancy. Or what do you think? The head-up display, by the way, is not flickering in real life. Maybe it does a little bit here. You can also change what you are seeing in the head-up display. That's possible. I think it's a useful addition, but of course everything goes with an extra price here, so you can easily step up the game price-wise. So on the right side, you start with 7-inch, that would be about that. And this one then, the optional top spec with a 10.25-inch. And that one is really wide then. And then you can still use the classic dials, which are in the lower middle console, but then it's also possible to use this sum control, especially for zooming in and out. However, I'm usually not that satisfied with their GPS software. It looks great, but sometimes it comes a little bit late when driving. And then you can scroll with your thumb through here, for example. You can connect your phone right there, either via Bluetooth. That is possible. And let's see if we can also go back or use the home button mode. There we go. And this is then the connectivity part. And there you can see you can also use CarPlay or Android Auto then when you plug it in. And in this interior overview, you can see, first of all, strongly wrapped in this nice leather red here all over the way, horizontal stress. It's, the design was a little bit blocked by the attached screen. It's a difference you can see even in the top trim with some new cars, the new A-Class, for example, or also an E-Class. There is this transition between the two big screens here now. Here it's still separated. That will be changed with the all-new C-Class. But of course, this infotainment upgrade here is the biggest one, biggest change they have did. Other than that, you have the 3 big air vents here that make also nice clicking sounds. Separate climate unit. And you can see here the carbon fiber decor for the C-Class facelift. You can now also get some open cell wood decor elements. That would be also quite fancy and also feels a little bit more natural. So, and in the front we can flip the cup holders up. This is also the USB port where you can connect your phone for the connectivity. Adaptive cup holders. Then this is the classic control unit. You press it, for example, or here back to the home button. Then on the left side you can change the suspension, especially for the C43. Here you have a steel suspension with the AMG setup, but it's also adaptive, so you can set different modes, and when you're in different driving modes, then it sets up. When you control it here, by the way, you can also see how it changes up there on the screen. For example, here from comfort, then the ESP is set on, or sport, the ESP is drawn back a little bit. More powerful sound from the exhaust, for example, or just again here back. So you have different Sport Plus, not really ready for the street, but maybe rather for the racetrack. Then it gets back here, another 2 USB ports right there. Quite a lot of space here in the middle console, and again this nice opening here with the split middle console. I somehow like it, do you? By the way, should you wonder, yes, you can control the steering height here and also the width or length. And this one is actually electronically done, so nice to have that for sure. Now let's get into the rear compartment. It's also with this sporty design, and also you could get the microfiber on the inside if you like, and just stay with the base level. Well, the headroom is of course limited, especially due to this glass roof, so I'm having a hard time sitting here. Knee room is actually quite okay, so I could be sitting a little bit further back, but knee room is totally fine. It's more really the headroom that is limiting for tall adults right here. Nice, by the way, with those red seat belts. It's a nice design feature. And you can also get another AC in the rear here if you want so. Also with nice clicking sounds for the vents. And I think it was very important here to always tell you what is optional and what is standard. So either showing the most fancy stuff and think, hey, it's all included, and later on you wonder, hey, I don't have that in my C-Class. So we always tell you that you can really differentiate that. And now this one here is the avant-garde trim. You can see here also a double blade, but not as close together as with the true AMG. Again, if you had the AMG line, that would be just one blade and then the diamond pin grille. So those are the differences. You can see the hood is split right there. Here you can also see again the new LED daytime running light signature. If you have both cars next to each other, pre and after facelift, could you really tell the difference? Well, a little bit if you look close in person. And another color here, of course. This one here is a new diesel hybrid. We'll soon take a look under the hood. What's that about? A nice detail, the front camera is hidden just right there. And to give another side profile look of this silver car, also with 18-inch rims, so you can see that's still already very suitable. So you can also leave the C43 with the base 18-inch, for example. Not too much tires here with the summer tires. Looks pretty fancy. And here again, the big C-pillar for the classic sedan roof. Which color would you actually go for at the moment with the C-Class? And again, the new LED signature also at the rear. It's a little bit different. The front is not so much different from the predecessor or pre-facelift. This one here, you can see a little bit better the changes. So this one is called C300DE, and yeah, .de is a sub-level or top-level domain for Deutschland, for Germany. That's pretty funny. Of course, in this case, diesel electric or diesel EQ, whatever. So let's open it, and we have already flipped the bench that you can have some light. And wow, look at that box. That's the battery below there, and this is really a massive loss in luggage space. So I think, to me, a no-go for this car. I like the electrification, what they're doing. It makes sense, but this loss in luggage space, I think this is where the understanding of the whole thing is ending. Wow, pretty disappointed of that one. And now the interior here of the diesel hybrid or the normal C-Class. You can see here this is the normal steering wheel, but it already has, because, you know, here at Geneva Motor Show, they have already set up with the two screens there and then also the two thumb buttons here, for example. By the way, also the Distronic Plus has been updated a little bit with more functionality, and you can, you know, also have this predictive efficiency now. For example, it reads the map and then goes from the gas from Distronic in advance. Especially is also that we have the open cell wood here I've been talking earlier about. I really love that, to have the natural feeling here. If you hear that actually. So by hearing it, you can also imagine how it feels with this rather rough surface that is not collecting fingerprints, for example. That's really nice. And now you also have different choices of open cell wood, the color you are picking. This has also been newly introduced with the facelift here. And what's interesting here in the rear, well, headroom again is a little bit cramped, so you should probably leave out this glass roof, then it will be better when you have tall people in the rear. And this one here is then, you know, a normal seat. It's a little bit different than here from the rear part. You have those holes here. That is good still for the knee room. But the sport seats are slimmer. Therefore, you have more legroom in the rear with the performance seats. But again, I think a good choice is not, you know, the base seats, not the super performance seats, but the normal sport seats that you can go optionally for. Or you can get it with the AMG line, or then also standard with the C43. That would be my choice. So Mercedes with the electrification, they have EQ Boost. Those ones are the mild hybrids. They have EQ Power. Those ones are the true hybrids, the plug-in hybrids. This one we can see here. And EQ, the pure electric vehicles. So those three electric models are there for Mercedes in future. As I said, this one here, EQ Power, a plug-in hybrid. This one here is a 2-liter diesel engine with around 200 horsepower. And then you can get additional 120 horsepower from a pretty strong electric motor. So considering the rest of the normal diesel engine, this is really considerable electric power you have here. So a strong boost, even though it's not the boost, but the EQ power there. You got that? Pretty complicated, right? And 50 kilometers of official driving range pure electric. If that's true, well, I would rather count with about 30 kilometers. But the most important thing is that you also have a good recuperation then and can get the consumption of the diesel down. Still, the diesel will have an S3R cleaning for the particles and for the NOx, of course, and then also a diesel particle filter for both. So that's our conclusion here for the Mercedes C-Class facelift. Here with the Avantgarde trim, or rather with the AMG, here the C43. Which one is your favorite? I think some nice design tweaks. It's not a major game changer from the exterior for sure. In the inside you have this infotainment system upgrade. Not everyone will go for it because it's also extra in the price, but you can have those two fancy digital screens now, and also with a thumb control, which is quite handy when controlling it while driving. That is helpful. No touchscreens yet, but with the new generation, and we've always seen in the A-Class, there will also be a touchscreen, so there are actually both possibilities there then. Well, the C43, especially with a sporty look, we have seen that one here with the diesel hybrid. Great electric power, but I think the limitation in the trunk is actually a no-go. That's a little bit sad. But some news here for you, definitely from the Mercedes booth. I hope you enjoyed it and also tune in to other cars we are showing here. This is the new Mercedes AMG GT 4-door coupe. So maybe if a C-Class is a little bit too boring for you or not sporty enough, and maybe if the normal AMG GT, the small one, it's not big enough for you or you need the kids in the back, then maybe that's one for you. And I will present you that. On the exterior, interior, here the 63 model, the top model, and also the 53 model, the entry model. All the details, exterior, interior, and the technology here on Autogefühl. Let's go. So from the front 2-door and 4-door version are not too different. Also the different power versions are not too different. You get this big Panamericana grille, which is wider in the lower part, then also bigger air intakes. That's a little bit different here, the graphic in the lower part for this model, for the 63, and some chrome accentuations. You can also get a carbon package. I will explain you more what does that later. And here also the top trim also has this LED high beam, but you get different trims of LED lights. Even with this very expensive car, not everything is serial. Well, this is what it's all about here, the side profile. 19 to 21 inch rims. Those ones are the biggest 21 inch rims in this chrome polish. Very beautiful, I think. And of course, this matte blue paint. You also see a new Mercedes design language is going back from very hard design lines more to simplistic round shapes right there. And of course, this is the main factor of the vehicle. Continues further back, has this very slowly falling roof line with a big shoulder part, and everything looks so smooth with this vehicle, don't you think so? By the way, carbon ceramic brakes optional. Go for them if you want to use it on a racetrack. If you're not using the car on a racetrack, they are, it's too much actually just for road driving, because they start to get squeaky a little bit when you don't use them hard enough. And the same accounts for the rear. And here again, the 2-door and the 4-door version resemble basically with those very slim LED rear lights. This one here is a foldable wing. It's automatically folding up and down. There's also a fixed one, a big one available, optional. And you can also get it with carbon fiber, but I think this way it's even more elegant still. By the way, also talking about the rear axle, it's very interesting. First of all, the rear wheels are a little bit wider than the front wheels. And you can also get the rear axle steering up to a speed of 100 kilometers an hour. And that's pretty, really a lot. Usually the systems are, tuned at a lower speed then. They go across, steer across front to the rear. And over 100 kilometers an hour, they steer in the parallel direction. And it gives you more agility and is also standard for the V8 models. And let's also open the boot here directly. Here we go. That's of course a difference into the 2-door model. You have this, loading gap, but overall, it's somewhat a usable sports car for everyday driving life. You can even fold the seats. I don't want to squish someone here now. Maybe the left side. Let's see, I can do the left side, I think. Attention. There we go. Come on. Attention, here we go. There it is. And then you can even load through longer things. So, this is one of the key elements to combine somehow loading capacity and this very sporty approach still. So, fake exhaust all the way, because they look massive, but you can really see the real ones are inside. Let's get inside here. So, here we go. And you got a matte wood interior right there at the inside of the doors. You can also hear that. So it's a rough surface, feels very natural, well done. Optional Burmester sound system. Then this one is a bright interior. Wow, that really looks amazing. And also new AMG steering wheel with a flat bottom and a new style. There we go. And two 12.3-inch screens. That's standard for the V8 models and optional for the base models, so to call them. Otherwise, you can also start with different gauges on the left side. Those ones here are the performance sports seats. They have the integrated head restraint. There are also base sports seats available. It's always a question what you are doing with the car. And the good thing is that the base models also come with a combination of microfiber on the inside. So you can also have, a choice which is not that slippery. Those performance seats are always a little harder in use. They're a little bit stiffer. And I had a very rude comment recently telling me, don't push your views on performance seats on anyone else. But, I can just say from my experience that as a tall person, those performance seats are less comfortable than the base sport seats. And maybe that also saves you a couple of €1,000. So I'm just giving you my experience. I guess most of our viewers will appreciate that. So you can also turn the steering wheel up and down and also towards you. The Distronic is now here on the left side, not a separate column anymore. You can set it right here with the speed. And also for the screens, you have the thumb control. If you have this optional 2-screen setup, then you can control basically everything. It's not 100% working on the demo car because you need more power for that. But you can see the 2-screen setup here. So we can also open this roof, and then you can also open the glass if we had power now. And interesting here in the interior overview, this with a dual screen setup and also with the turbine vents, it rather looks like an E-Class definitely. Then the middle console here really reminds of the 2-door version of the AMG GT. You have this AMG automatic shifting lever. Then you have this touchpad. You can write something like an address, for example, or you can scroll in the infotainment system. Those ones here, those pads, well, you see they collect a lot of fingerprints, not that much when you're using the car alone. Here you will find some displays. Those are display buttons for certain functions, for example, suspension and stuff. You will have a small TFT right there, which serves as a button at the same time. That's a completely new development and is also exclusive for this vehicle. Also, you get the V form right here. That shall remind of the V8 of the car. In the front, you can slide that one open. You have the USB port, which connects the smartphones, for example, for CarPlay and Android Auto. And the climate control is still separately, but you can see here, I have to reach in very complicated here. I'm not sure why it's like while driving, and then, it's warm and, or when I'm a little bit complicated, isn't it? So that's not a really ergonomic building form they found here, but surely looks pretty impressive. And right there you have more USB ports, 2 more. Those are then, for example, for charging. And then if you look even further back, you'll also have for the rear seats, you'll have a separate screen which can be controlling stuff in the rear, for example, also the climate vents. So those are more digital luxury features you have here. And I can reach over here as well for more cup holders for the rear passengers. You can even cool them or heat them. Wow, that's pretty fancy. So let's get in the rear compartment. Headroom wise in the front, by the way, I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", should you not be a subscriber yet. And I had this room over my head in the front. Now in the rear, if I sit correctly, it still works. And that's amazing because the car does not look like that from the outside. That's really interesting. Also, the legroom, still quite okay. Maybe the seat could be a little bit higher, that I couldn't put my feet under it a little bit more. And if we remember now the Mercedes CLS new generation, our review, I don't think I had more room in the CLS. Actually, it feels like I would have more room here, somehow. That's really interesting. Sporty setup here with the 2-seat, but you can also get a 3-seat setup here. It's just a through bench then. You know what you prefer. This one is more like exclusive luxury style. The bench you can have through, then you're more flexible if you have more children, for example. So, but that's totally up to you then. And by the way, the trunk space about 400 up to 1,300 liters if you want the figures. And even 2 more USB slots. So overall 5 I have counted. They really have thought about enough. There's even a 230 volt socket at the lower part. You can make it at an office. And the soft close for the doors. Ta-da, that's the 4-liter V8, 535 horsepower in the 63 or 639 horsepower in the 63S. Difference is 3.4 or 3.2 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. Soon we'll also take a look at the 53 entry model. What else is interesting? Well, they all come with all-wheel drive. Still have a big rear wheel bias. If you turn off the ESC, we've tested it also with a 2-door variant, you can easily slide the rear around. You have to be careful for that. And for the V8 model, there's even a drift mode available that makes it a 100% rear wheel drive car then. And then you, of course, should be able to drive such car with so much horsepower because it's really a beast. And now to the 53 model. First of all, different color. In white, I always love to show you different colors. This one is basically the entry version. It won't be cheap either, but in general, you know, the design in the front is pretty much similar. You've maybe seen that the lower air intake area is a little bit different, but only if you compare them directly after each other. So maybe scroll back again, scroll to this one again, and then really compare it. And side rear look. This one here is, by the way, equipped with a night package. See dark window frames, also dark side mirror caps, also with black alloys, so really contrasting style. 21-inch optional alloys here as well, and without the carbon ceramic brakes. Interesting that those tires are also overlapping a little bit. That's good to protect those precious alloys, because those alloys alone cost so much like a normal small car, I can tell you. Different exhaust design, and I stress the word design because this is again just the outer part you are seeing from the exhaust, not really the real one. Different interior, first of all black, all dark. You can see the decor elements also with this carbon fiber. So I would like to know from you, which one would you prefer? Also the seats, those ones are not the performance seats, those ones are the normal sport seats. You can again also get them with different surfaces, and also here with separated head restraints. And I'll also take a test. Yeah, so they are definitely softer. They don't hold you tight that much, but you know, if you are planning to do some long-term hauling with this car, then those ones would be more suitable. Again, if you're planning to do racetrack runs, then the other ones will keep you tighter, definitely. What's not really working, I think, is this high glossy black part here again. Ooh, that looks unless you're cleaning it really often. But I think, you know, other decor solutions would be better in this case. Again, here with 2-screen setup. 4 turbine vents from this perspective, again, pretty impressive. The steering wheel has the perforated sides. You can also get the microfiber here on the side. And then those black plastic elements at the top part. Also not really my style. Is it yours? And well, there's one more interesting thing to show you at the steering wheel. I think you should come around, because that's also, again, a new thing. Because to change the different driving modes, you have those, again, small screens. Too bad they are offline, but here you can switch them through, and then you see something happening here. We can do the racing controls and stuff. Here also for the driving modes, and on the right side, what usually would be directly, you know, visible, is just visible when you turn on the car, and then you can change it through. The quality of this one here and the other one is not really on the normal Mercedes level, but maybe because it's an early prototype car, I'm not sure. We will check that out later. I want to hear from you what you think about those small screen buttons that we'll also have on the middle console. Is that way to go, or would you like to have it rather the old-fashioned way? Also very interesting, here we do have the other setup I've been talking about, the bench that goes through, but even that one has this, let's say, semi-single seat setup. You see that the middle seat will not be comfortable. And yes, of course, I will test it for you. I just heard someone saying, Thomas, do it. Here, by the way, the seats, also with this seat setup, pretty much legroom still left. So I would have never guessed that this car is actually not cramped at all in the rear. Well, the rear bench is not that long and you sit a little bit, leaning backward, but considering the design on the exterior, it somehow works with the family then. And you can sit here in the middle. There's a big middle tunnel, of course. Not for tall people really, because then it also gets high with the ceiling and also quite stiff then from seating. Maybe for shorter rides that would work, but I think it gives you a little bit more flexibility that you can at some point also drive this car with 5 people. And that's how it looks like when you flip the whole bench, actually, both sides. Maybe a trip to Home Depot, or to the Baumarkt, as we say in Germany then. So the big difference here now, 6-cylinder, R6, not V6, so in row, 3-liter displacement. We know this engine already. 435 horsepower, plus 22 from an electric motor. And that gives you a 4.5 seconds acceleration to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. This is not, a true AMG engine. This one is basically a stock AMG engine, but has this mild hybrid system. And in our test with the CLS, actually it worked pretty well. Brought down the fuel consumption, so it makes somehow sense. And of course, the really important thing is that the price is really lower for this so-called entry model. All of the features you could also get optional for this one here, like rear exit steering, for example, the 2-screen setup and so on. Sound-wise, of course, it will be a difference. And now to compare the 2-door version, this is the AMG GT-R, the top sporty trim of the 2-door variant. You can see the hood is longer, it's also way flatter. You can realize that now when I'm standing next to it, the 4-door coupe now is more CLS-alike also in the front. Just the very front grille is pretty much similar. Then also here again, the side profile, you can see that the roofline falls down directly. This is really the major difference. The other one would go further like this. Here also with a fixed wing, you can also get something like this, not that big for the 4-door coupe, but just a little smaller one. Also the same huge rims there. And of course, what about the interior actually, the comfort? This is actually a very crucial point. I just hit here. Those ones are the bucket seats. Those ones are not available for the 4-door one with microfiber on the inside. Well, to compare bucket seats now, it's not exactly fair to say, but that's the car we have now as direct comparison. If you want to compare more of the AMG GT 2-door, there's a separate rear view to it. And of course, you sit lower in this vehicle. You feel a little bit more caged in. The 4-door definitely offers you more comfort. And what I said earlier, it has now more modern interior. So this middle console with the V form has been carried over on or inspired by that one. Those buttons we can still see here now are now the virtual buttons. But then the upper dashboard is basically the E-Class in the 4-door one. This one here is still the classic setup with a small screen in the middle and the analog instruments on the left. Still some headroom here left because the bucket seats are very low. But if you ask me now, this car is clearly more beautiful to me from the exterior. But driving-wise and comfort-wise, racetrack, this one, yeah, okay. But for everyday driving, I think it's pretty clear that we would rather pick the 4-door coupe then, unless, you want to have the racetrack every day. And there you can see the clear difference in the boot. You can still use it as a coupe, but of course a massive difference then for the 4-door version. This one here, the GTR, also has the, the stiffness package, I would call it that way. So to give you even more rigidity and safety, this one, is also of course not relevant for just everyday driving life. But here I want to show you the comparison here. You can really see how much space the new 4-door version has for a sports car. Now back to the 4-door one. And now to our conclusion for today. This 4-door coupe of the Mercedes AMG GT. Definitely somewhat a new segment for Mercedes. Yes, it is also answering the Panamera, but the thing is, CLS, Panamera, the AMG GT 4-door, the transitions are really close and the model lineups of the manufacturers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and every small niche is being attacked. What do you think about it? Would you fancy such a car? I would really like to know your opinion of that one. The exterior styling, I mean, surely a really elegant one. Also the concept vehicle we presented you last year at the very same place and time. Not the same time, of course, but the same time of the year. So they really went for it because the feedback was actually quite good they got. So the design really resembles a two-door model. It's of course more versatile than the two-door model itself. And well, considering also the CLS, key finding that it does have some room in the rear as well. That's pretty interesting. Also interesting with the new mild hybrid technology. And so you can make it also, you know, less consuming if you're not keen on the big V8 power. Still, a lot of customers will go for the V8 power, of course, also to get the true sound through the fake exhaust, so to say. Of course, we'll drive this car also at some point, and then you can follow us there too. What do you think? Is there a four-door coupe? Is there such thing? How's your definition? Well, that's up to you. Tune in also to more episodes of Autogefühl with Thomas and with Brian also from the Geneva Motor Show. So there's the new generation of the Mercedes G-Class, and here it is now as the G63. I know a lot of you guys wanted to see it, and we will present it to you in full HD, full screen and full length, exterior and interior, and all the technical details. Let's go! This is one of the few cars where I can just stand next to it and don't have to go like this and hey, the front grille, oh wait, there it is. So I can relax and just stand up. Also the turning indicators are still with this bulb here on the top. The AMG comes with a dark look here also in the front grille, the AMG logo, then the vertical fins, massive Mercedes star, front grille camera, and then also with stronger air intakes in the front there. In general, the new G-Class generation is also a little bit wider, so a bigger stance even on the road than it had before. 4.82 m or 15'8" is the length of the new G-Class, so also 5 centimeters longer just a little bit. And wow, here in the V8 AMG, we also have the 22-inch rims, the optional biggest one that are available. Wow, this is really massive. Also with the AMG model, we have bigger wheel arches, so a little bit stronger even. You could even stand on those. Then you have the side pads here and special thing with a side exhaust down here. And one of those has a special exhaust valve, which then opens then in the sports mode to give you the real punch sound-wise. Other than that, this is all still classic G-Class with the very upright building. So much different than all of the new SUVs. But it is actually still very high in the price. You know, starting with the 100,000, and then if you go for the top spec AMG, you can probably just double that. And interesting, I'll already do it right now. The door sound has remained the same. Again, there we go. And also when you open it already. So. And customers still want this very unique door sound, that you basically have a door sound from 40 years ago in a today's car. And that's how the G63 looks like from the rear here, also with the attached replacement wheel. Very important for off-roading, but, well, will this AMG be going off-road? I'm not so sure about that. Classic box styling, a little bit different here with the tail lights now. They're very tiny considering the, you know, the car. 170 kilograms is, by the way, the weight saving, but still 2.4 tons in total weight. And then you can also open it like this. This is also the reason always when you see those rear hatches opening like this from true off-road vehicles, because the steering wheel is so heavy. We're just putting that here. They also have a stitching at the inside of the door right here, classic handle, and then very square dimensions, so you can easily load things in and out. However, considering the width of the car, you still lose a lot of space, of course. But, I mean, you could easily carry a dishwasher in here. So this is the 4-liter V8 engine. You also get this one basically first in the G500. That's the base engine. We've also presented you that one earlier already. Same capacity, but different horsepower, 422 horsepower. And then this one here. This one is a true AMG engine, one man, one engine concept. See the guy who built this engine by himself, basically, one by one piece. Also 4-liter V8, but here then with 585 horsepower. And that brings down the acceleration in comparison to the G500 from 5.9 to 4.5 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. Of course, really massive for such a vehicle. It's still due to we've got some weight savings, but it's still a very heavy car, of course. It's not only visually heavy, also in real life. Yeah, that looks pretty funny, me sitting next to this huge wheel, and that's the reason I was doing that. But I also want to tell you something about the ground clearance. It's 27 centimeters in the front, and the wading depth, so you can go through water, is now 70 centimeters. And also important information about suspension. Well, in the front you got an independent suspension, so it's quite flexible, normal for a passenger car also. But the rear then is still equipped with a rigid axle, so beware. We will soon drive the cars, of course, the new G-Class and then also later the 63. But you will not have a comfort like with a normal modern SUV from Mercedes with, you know, a better suspension also in the rear. This one is still rather the real off-road deal, potentially. Of course, also, you know, with gear reduction and stuff like that. Still when you want the true hardcore stuff. Now let's get inside. Inside of the doors. Everything also wrapped tightly. Also optional Burmester sound system. Seat control right here. Seat heating and seat cooling will be available. This car, by the way, built by Magna Steyr in Austria. So for Mercedes. Actually, it has always been the case. Now the look at the interior of the AMG, the 63, with the new AMG steering wheel, has a new design style. Also then with a thumb control, left and right next to the steering wheel, because, well, you start with analog gauges, but in the top trim, which is displayed right here, maybe I can activate it. There it is. In the top trim, you can have two 12.3-inch dials. Left side, you can pick different styles, for example. You can go into different menus. It's not possible in this demo here right now, but at least it shows a screen. And on the right side too, then you can use the right thumb. But it's not. Ah, there it is. But the right is active. So back to the home menu. It doesn't seem to be working. Sometimes they are not really active, those systems, when the rear ignition is not on. So just demo mode now. But you get the picture visually wise from this huge two different screens that are basically forming one unit then now. In a top trim, at least. But I think some might still go for the analog gauges. Here, the seats, they have this well, the stitching here in red contrast for the AMG style. Unfortunately, so far they only offer animal skin surfaces, especially in the sporty trim. I think they should offer some alternatives. Then let's get inside, and you really have to step in the car. That's really funny. A nice detail is, by the way, you not only sit upright, still the windscreen. Well, it's not 90 degrees upright, but almost. And this, you know, gives you this very, very special feeling in this car. It's so much different than with, you know, than with a classic modern SUV. This one here is the classic off-roader style. So it's something totally different. You know, there are other big SUVs, but you see the long hood then in the front, and with the screen, it's, you know, it's really hard to explain. You just have to experience it yourself. I think we can give you a little touch of that. It gives you a so much more rugged feeling. However, the rest of the interior you can see, also with those turbine vents here, for example. Look at how they are installed. That's a very interesting system, definitely. Everything looks pretty much premium inside, so less of this off-road rugged style. Here, by the way, also with the Burmester sound system, those additional speakers here, they resemble a little bit the front indicator lights we have there on the top of the hood. That's really interesting. By the way, as you can move forward so much, because you sit so much upright, that will also increase the rear legroom even more. And in the front, 6 centimeters wider shoulder room, so you have more space also next to each other. And by the way, I'm 1m86 or 6'1", and we don't have to talk about headroom here. Interior overview, here you can see again how it dissolves basically into one area right there. Then this panic handle here for the co-driver, especially for off-road use. Then the different differential locks here. Front, center and also rear differential lock you can activate for off-road driving. Again, those turbine vents you have, separate climate control. And then this red checkered carbon fiber style. You can slide those open, 2 cup holes in there, 12-volt power supply. You can still control the infotainment system right here. It's not really in the mode where we can do too much to it other than deactivating it. But again, you can also use the thumbs, right and left thumb then here for that one. But we've shown that in a couple of other Mercedes reviews. 12 volt, that's funny. 12 clock mark here for the steering wheel, again with perforated sides, flat bottom AMG. Pretty sporty, definitely. And you should also check out the normal G500 interior, which we've shown you earlier at the very, very world premiere. Check out this video from Autogefühl. We'll link it also. So, I've shown you the differential locks, those 3. But let's talk about more off-road commands. First of all, in close-up here, the climate unit and the analog clock. And when you go further down, you have the classic Mercedes control unit, but on the right side especially, you have a button to activate the camera. This is very important. Then the exhaust valve also for the AMG to give it a little more boost. And this one then is the low range button if you are in even harsher off-road situations. And on the left side of that one, we also have controls for the adaptive suspension, maybe to make it a little bit stiffer or sportier, depending also on the driving mode. Then we have this split here in the armrest console. Here we go. You can secure your mobile phone there. Oh, it's a little bit dark down there, you know. Maybe I can give you some light there with my smartphone. There we go. So you can put smartphones in there. And then 2 USB ports. One for connecting directly for the smartphone media interface and one just for charging. And on the top part here, you can have a glass roof. You can also open, and you can also close a shade right there. This is still manual, but why not? The electric glass roof then can be opened electrically, of course. Now let's get into the rear compartment. And the thing here is, it has become 15 centimeters longer on the inside. And of course, due to the upright seating position, you have enough legroom then. Considering the length of the car, it's not so much, so the using of the package is not that good, but it's a definite great improvement if you compare it to the predecessor model. You have way more legroom here, also fits now for tall adults. And headroom again is absolutely no problem. In the setup as it is right now here, I'm pretty much falling back with the rear bench. So there's an adjustment right here. You can pull that one and then you can move the seat backwards or forward. And I'll do that with my seat here now on my side. It's actually a pretty easy solution because then you can actually also sit more upright. That's actually more comfortable also for longer terms. That's a pretty nice seating position here. And you also have this command driving position even if you are just passenger here in the rear. Also with Isofix on the outside of the seats, you can also put in child seats. And then here we have cup holders right there. So that's possible. And of course I want to know, when I get out the car now, can I actually flip the seat completely, or at least to which extent? Let's see. Here we go. So that would be actually the maximum. So there's nothing with folding flat or something, but at least you can load through longer things then and have it, in a steeper angle than just from the rear. For loading things through completely, there's just a small ski hatch right there. And you will also have a rear climate unit right there, again with the nice turbine vents. And in the lower part, well, here we go with another USB port. So now the conclusion with the new Mercedes G-Class and especially the G63. Well, this rugged, still classic off-road look is what makes this car so special. That's by the reason why I liked its GLK, you know, the compact SUV, now replaced by the GLC that is now way rounder everywhere. Well, in the new G-Class generation, they have not gone this way. They kept it in this classic look. And the big problem I have with this car is that it's too expensive with 100,000 euros base model for the G500. And I mean, to build this car, it's maybe like 25,000 euros maximum, and the rest is margin for the brand. But people still give so much money for it to get this uniqueness of the vehicle. And the G63 with more power and of course almost double the price, you can easily crunch at 200,000 euros. And that's of course, you know, nothing has to do with real pricing, that's just fantasy pricing. The interior, I think, has been reworked pretty much. So you have a good modern interior, but still with a lot of, you know, edgy elements, angular elements, which also transport this rugged feeling to the interior. And of course, more rear legroom. They've really worked on that. I think actually the biggest strength of the car. And what I like most is that you have this upright seating position in all of the different seats. So it makes also a very comfortable ride. Soon we'll check out also the driving experience. Then we will see how that one turns out from driving, if that will be also comparable from SUVs or not. Join us then, and what you think about this one here, tune into the comments now. One of the vehicles you want to see is the Mazda 6 facelift for the 2018, or if you think in automotive year term, 2019 model already, here as a wagon or estate, but we also have it as a sedan, different color, different trims on the interior. We'll tell you everything about the changes. Let's go! In the front grille here was so far with horizontal elements, going like this. Now it's more vertical and also has this dot structure, looks a little bit more modern, more aggressive. And then the headlight unit with optional adaptive LED lights as they're equipped right here. So far, this chrome line led there on the top part. Now it's leading to the lower part and more forming one unit with the headlight. Do you like the changes? The lengths remain at 4.80 meters and 4.87 meters, so it was a little bit longer here with the estate, just a little longer overhang. What a great red color as well. Optional 19-inch rims. So on the side profile they haven't changed to... Hey, who's that? So Brian is joining us on stage. How are you doing?
I'm good. Unfortunately, this one is not connected, but excellent.
You like the color?
Yeah, it's fantastic. What is it called?
Well, they have, I think, Soul Red, I think. It is, or was it Ruby Red? They changed the color name recently. We have to check that up again, but it didn't say at the column here. But oh, Michel is saying, I think on a tight schedule, he wants us to continue on with the review. So we'll see you later, right? Now look at the rear with a chrome strip right there. Little redesigned tail lights right there with the LED signature. Also quite simplistic and beautiful in the design. Then let's see. Manual tailgate right there with an integrated cover, but it's also a good solution. It's a very clean one, definitely. Wow, that's really dark here. Let's give you some light. So here we go with a little light at least, so you can see something of the trunk. Has good square dimensions. We can also flip the seats. Let's go here and here. Easy solution. They almost flip completely. If the front seat would be in the front now, I'd soon do that. Also place for a replacement tire. Let me just push the front seat a little bit more in the front. And then you can see the maximum setup right there. So I think this is also the big advantage of the estate. So interior, this will also be very interesting. Soft touch on the top part. This has been redesigned now. Is like a microfiber, also with this I'm not sure if it's real wood, I think it's just wood style, but it looks really great and it also feels great. This is actually not too much space for the inside of the doors, however. Optional Bose sound system. Then they have new seats, so the seat form itself changed now. Base model also comes with fabric. I would recommend you those. But I'm really keen to test those new seats from the seat form. Also, you can see that the dashboard has been redesigned here again with the microfiber. That's really well done. And also the middle part of the dashboard has changed. I'll soon show you that. First of all, the seat. Let's put it down. It's an electric version right there. So, like this. And well, make a good impression. First impression. I have to test them for a longer time. We will, of course, soon then also have the driving review here of the Mazda 6 facelift. Still delivering you that in a couple of months, then for sure at least. Quite good seating position. You know, mid-size segment here. You will also have a head-up display that has been updated recently. You can check it out in our most recent driving review from last year, not too long ago. They make steady facelift changes one by one. And so far, I mean, it's a nice tweak. You can even better see that when you sit behind me and look to the front. So this is the pre-facelift dashboard arrangement. And you can see how the vents are orientated right there. Then you can see it here. This one then is new. This new big microfiber horizontal strip really looks amazing and also cleaner than here with the wood decor element, and the vents are well integrated. Overall, a cleaner, sleeker design and nice. We also have those Audi style temperature vents now. So in a time where Audi gets rid of them, Mazda gets them, and with a nice clicking sound, heated steering wheel, also heated seats. And this is now a different concept because here you can still push things, control the temperature like this. And maybe people say, yeah, you know, Audi's getting a step too far ahead. I still want to control it like this. And now it's with more quality. Also then the integrated screen that has been updated also even before that. Unfortunately, it's not powered, but in our driving review, you could see it being powered. So more storage space in the front part, automatic gearbox available, cup holders right here, adaptive one. Looks really good quality-wise. Mazda has stepped up the game. So really good facelift changes here. 2 more USB ports right there. So now the rear compartment. I had the seat as I would be driving, and that leaves some legroom right there, so that's okay. But for the mid-size segment, we also took a look at the V60, the Volvo, the new one, that had more legroom here in the rear. But the seats also have become thicker here, so that's actually a disadvantage. Headroom-wise, it's like in the front, you still have a lot of headroom, that's no problem. And the advantage of the estate or wagon that continues all the way onto the roof. Hey! Joined by Brian. So how is it for smaller people like you to sit here?
Thomas, not everybody is freakishly tall like you. So, as you can see, if you have relatively proportioned legs, okay, let's be honest, my legs are a little on the small side, there is acres of space back here. I'd say it's really quite nice in terms of, it feels like an executive finish. It's subtle, it's discreet, it even comes with its own Jonas, which we can see through the window. We're a full team again, this is great. I'm really liking this experience. I think that I would be comfortable doing work back here. Do we have fold-out trays we can use?
Doesn't look like that, but look at that. Also the microfiber, the inside of the doors, even for the rear seats. Is it soft touch also at the top part?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, that really is a nice finish.
Nice finish, really. I think one of the things they have proved here with the facelift. And now also let's take a look at the sedan. You can see here, first of all, different color. Also again with the new front grille. I think it's really beautiful small change. Sorry. We had the side laps. Sorry. Busted. So you can see here again the design line on top of the door handles, but just a subtle design line. And of course a difference from the sedan, but it doesn't look so much sedan-like. It looks a little bit fastback-alike, I think, with a coupe style ending right there, chrome frame around the windows, and then raising shoulder line right there. I think they are really on spot with their design here at the moment. Do you think that the sedan is more beautiful or the estate? Tell me in the comments. And then here the trunk comparison. Of course, you have less room here. Considering it's an estate, still, reasonable. Just for loading in and out, of course, it's a disadvantage for sure. You can also flip the seats, but then you have to unlock them here. That's a little bit strange. and then have to go around to flip them. So, of course, the Estate offers the better solution right there. But at least you have still the possibility to flip it like this, and then can also load things through. Oh, that's a little bit awkward here. You have to take a look at that. They should probably fix it with the next facelift. If you come around here, Michelle, then I can show you that. That came up actually when I folded down the seat. I think we've seen it in the CX-5 already. So they tweaked a lot of things which look so beautiful, but maybe that one should be addressed at the engineering department. Headroom here in the front, also in sedan. This is not a difference, actually. But the seat, by the way, is quite voluminous. You sit relatively high for a mid-size vehicle. So in other mid-size vehicles, like also in the Volvo V60, you sit actually way lower. So this is a big difference. You rather sit on the car. And here in the rear, the difference is then you still can sit here. Do you lose like this approximately? So it's still okay for tall people in the rear, also in the sedan. But of course, you're a little bit more flexible in the Estate. Yeah, I mean, engines, we don't have to talk about that right now because they remain the same. My favorite engine for this one is the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine, now also with cylinder on demand. You can check out our driving review again. They did some little tweaks with the Sky Active engines to make them a little bit more efficient. We also recently made a review of the Sky Active X that is coming. Check that out in the Master 3 preview we did. Pretty interesting piece. I hope you enjoyed this review here of the Master 6 facelift. Again, soon then with the driving test.
It's been a long wait, but it's finally here. The brand new Audi A6. Has it been worth the wait? Will there be enough additions to make it new and exciting? Let's take a closer look. For a lot of people, this is the business sedan. So it has to achieve two quite different things. The first is it has to look stylish, it has to look conservative and understated, but the second is that it has to look fast. Why? Well, let's be honest, you're not going to own an A6 unless you want other people to know that you own an A6. So this redesign needs to keep that characteristic sporty look, and if it can, add to it a little bit. Well, I think they've made a very impressive statement right from the start. Look at this. It absolutely says business from the first glance. We have two sensor arrays here, you can see mounted right into the grille. I think they've done a really nice job of the way they've integrated those into the design. Lots of car manufacturers struggle with figuring out how best to put those into the bumper without making them look too obvious. We also have a front camera here, again, that's nice and discreet and fits in with the overall styling. And all of these horizontal lines help break up the front of this visually so we can really get a sense of the styling of the car. Let's take a look slightly higher up and see what happens with the bonnet. Well, we've got some very pronounced design lines here. These nice, discreet, traditional lines flow through into the bonnet, but look at this crease here. Wow, that really cuts in and follows right through to the back of the car. It really suggests motion as it goes along, almost as if wind has sculpted the side of this car. That really helps to give it a feeling of speed, even when it's standing still. Now we can really start to get into some details. So this car is just under 5 meters or 16'2" in length, and that makes it around about 7 millimeters longer than its predecessor. So if you want that visually, that's around about that much. So not particularly noticeable, you could say. The height is also a little larger than its predecessor by 12 millimeters, and that's round about this much in height. So you might think, okay, it doesn't make a lot of difference, but it does change the stature of the car. And remember that design line I talked about coming right across the side, right from the front and right into the back? That helps make sure that the car doesn't look significantly bigger. Talking of significantly bigger, let's look at these wheels. Well, new for the brand new A6, we have up to 21-inch wheels, and that really does make the car look very aggressive on the road. I don't think it's overblown. It's very stylish in conjunction with these very thin tires. You have a very dynamic looking car. Coming around to the back, we really start to get a sense of the proportions. This car is 1.9 meters or 6'2" in width, and that is 12 millimeters wider than its predecessor. So again, visually, that's around about that. So that is the most significant increase in sizing on this car. Really, it doesn't look especially bigger, but I bet you notice that slight addition to space when you actually sit in the back. And as it's a business sedan, that's very important. Now, let's take a look inside and see what they've done with the boot. I use the handle, but one feature which won't come as particularly new shock to anybody is that you now have an underfloor catch where if you swipe your foot, the boot will open. I'm notorious for failing to make these work at motor shows, so I'm going to have a go and see if I can. Well, it's not going to be my lucky day today either, but often with show cars, they're not fully set up for use, so you just have to take my word on that. The boot itself is 530 litres in size. Now, lots of you who are aficionados will know that that number hasn't changed at all from its predecessor, but the way that the space is utilised has been. Audi are very enthusiastic to point out that you can fit 2 full golf bags horizontally in this boot, and that does give you a clear indication of the type of customer they are expecting to be buying this car. Got some nice discreet details in here. These chrome luggage straps are going to keep anything that you want exactly where it's supposed to be. And if we have a look underneath the panel, well, goodness, that's some very nice organization for you. You might notice something sitting there with a gauge on it and wondering exactly what this is. Well, happy to tell you that the new engines are both, and we'll get more into the engines a little later on, both mild hybrids. That means that you gain the benefit of having electric power as well. So the car can coast without burning any fuel. That's a really nice touch. You can see other than that, the subwoofer's been pushed over to the side. That's a change from usually using the well that would have accommodated a spare tyre, and the tools are all nicely laid out. So nice organisation under there. I don't think most of the owners of this car are going to spend too much time underneath this flap though. So we have a very nice load space that'll take plenty of suitcases or anything else you could want to fit in. Now let's take a look inside. Well, we've been waiting a long time to get this new redesign, so Audi had a lot to achieve in terms of making it look fresh and contemporary and stylish. And at first glance, absolutely hit the nail on the head. Well, almost. Again, piano black. I don't think that I'm going to take a look at a single car at this motor show that doesn't feature this surface, and I just don't understand why, but I won't go on about it. It's there, it's a feature, that's how it is. This detailing here, while I feel it works really well on the doors, I'm not a fan of it on top of the dashboard. It reminds me a little bit of Formica kitchen countertop. Now, if you don't know what that is, if you think back to the way people had their kitchens finished back in the 70s or early 80s, it was reminiscent of that, and I don't know why you would want to put that somewhere where the light hits it directly. I just don't think it looks that good, and it's not in keeping with the style of the car. We have leather across the top of the dashboard, not my taste, but very popular with lots of people, and then a ledge which forms the basis for the heating and cooling system. It's okay. I guess it's not particularly saying a great deal of anything, but I think that's the thought process, not least because of what Audi is very, very excited about, and that is their new MMI touch system. Now, if you spring for the most expensive model, which clearly this car is fitted with, that means that you get a 10-inch screen here, an 8.2-inch screen here, and a 12.3-inch screen here. So Audi really want to let you know they are committing to the future in terms of touch. Well, you not only can get haptic feedback through this system, that's where the system talks to you by vibrating back, but it's also kitted out to work acoustically. So it will give you the information you need without needing to look at the displays. And that's very important because there's an awful lot of visual real estate here. The screens have been designed in such a way that they fit in seamlessly with the design, so you don't actually notice the fact that they are separate and independent of the dashboard as a whole. And that's really nice. I'll tell you something that really does impress me about this new system, and that's individualization. You can save up to 7 different drivers' profiles on this car. Well, big deal, you might think. I think it is. You can change 400 different parameters of how the car looks and behaves. Now, I don't know if you share a car with anybody. I do. And I can really say the idea of being able to jump in the car, push a button, and have everything change to suit me is very appealing. Not least because along with all of the specializations you can have with the infotainment unit, it's also the way the car drives and handles, and because it's an intelligent system, it learns and it makes navigating through the menus get progressively easier and closer to what it is you want. Audi are very enthusiastic to tell us that their menu system is superior to other people's menu system in that it makes sense. That's a fairly bold claim because an awful lot of these systems are really difficult to navigate their way through. So let's just take a look and see how easy it is. Unfortunately, being a show car, we can't actually access a huge amount of the settings because obviously it's not set up to be able to drive. Although if Jonas can just show you the driver's display in the cockpit here, we can see some of the personalization feedback that I was talking about earlier. I don't know if Martin is the owner of this car, but apparently it's set up for him to use. Trying to find out how easy it is. There we go. It's pretty straightforward in order to be able to start communicating with the car. Now, the touchscreen here is really very responsive, as you would expect. There's no lag at all, and it's pretty easy to get to where you want to get to. I'm almost certain you can't pick it up on this microphone, but there is a discrete click every time you select anything, which gives you the reassurance to know that you've actually selected something. That's great for when you're driving. Again, you don't have to look at the screen in order to be able to know what's happening. Well, overall, I would say that the infotainment system is delivered very nicely. It's phenomenally complicated, but it does do a good job of managing to give you the information you need without needing to feel overwhelmed. With 400 different customizations, you can certainly find a lot to play with, but it doesn't really irritate the first time you use it. It's actually quite intuitive and straightforward, and it looks really good. I don't know if you're a big fan of the massive screens in Teslas, but for me this is a much better way to go, having more screens rather than one larger screen, and then you can interact with things separately without needing to confuse the information that you need coming in. So slightly further down we will find the automatic gear shift. Now, whether or not you get one of the two available engines, and that's either a petrol or a diesel, you are going to be getting an automatic gearbox. The diesel comes with an 8-speed DSG. The petrol comes with a 7-speed S-Tronic. So I assume they're going to deliver a fairly similar performance. Apparently their fuel consumption is relatively comparable. Obviously, we're not going to get to find out the full benefit of the setup until we get to give the car a drive, but it's certainly making me look forward to that. Again, we have this wood effect throughout the center console. I'm not a massive fan. I think it could have been a little bit more discreet, but that's my taste. Chrome effect right throughout here, and then if we have a look in the center, we can see we have inductive charging. And thank you very much for making that pad a decent size that you can actually fit a modern phone on it. Lots of them are too small. 2 USB ports, that makes 4 in total, including the 2 in the back. A SIM card slot for the infotainment system and an SD card slot. So really everything you could reasonably want to be able to access in the front. Plenty of room, plenty of space. Driving position, really comfortable. I must apologize for my appearance. It's always very hot at these events and no air conditioning in the car, so that's why I look as if I've been sitting in a swamp. Now, the seat has many adjustments as well, and that means if it's not comfortable for you the first time you sit in it, you're bound to be able to find something that you like. This is a little low for me at the moment, but you can see again acres of headroom. The front of this car has an absolute abundance of space, so I can get myself into exactly the position that I want to be in. Because of the way that the bonnet tapers off at the front, it is difficult getting a sense as a driver of the length of this car straight off the bat from the moment that you sit in it. But because you have cameras all around it, that's really not going to be a problem for you. So overall, I think the styling works. It's clean, it's sophisticated. For me, some of the details could be a little bit better, but Audi's a driver's car, and everything about this car is telling me to drive it. This is a business sedan, so the experience of sitting in the back is absolutely crucial. And I'm happy to tell you, it's really rather nice back here. Let's have a look at this door. We have this nice wood effect styling detail underneath, brushed chrome for both the handle and the door opening catch. Nice, subtle, discreet, not overstated. Well, I'm still a bit disappointed that we couldn't have had something a little bit more creative than the leather finish, but lots of people like that. So if that's your style, then you're going to be more than happy. Not sure they couldn't have done something slightly better and more convincing with these seat backs. Although these net backs are very practical, they don't really spell out luxury or high class to me, and I think that's something that I really want to see in this car. The passenger's experience of being back here is very nice. We have 2 USB charging points and a 12-volt adapter as well. So plenty of charging options for you while you're out on business. Unfortunately, the system isn't on currently, so I can't access any of the controls back here. But we have 2 independent heating and cooling units. And let's talk about the seats. Well, they are really comfortable, and I'm not just saying that, they really are. They're firm but supportive, and they hold you very nicely indeed. I think this car's really designed for 2 in the back with real comfort, but you have plenty of space in the middle here, so if you do need to fit a third person in, they're absolutely going to be able to. Talking of space, look at this. I'm 5'10" in height, or 178 centimeters, so I don't have the biggest legs in the world. But even if I was Jonas, who is significantly bigger, I'm sure you can agree there is plenty of space for me back here. And head height, well, there's not tons, but there is more than enough. I would say you'd be fine in this car up until you start getting over sort of 6'2". I've got around about an inch spare at my head, but I do have a particularly long torso. So I think it's going to be more than sufficient for most people. It's very difficult to make the styling look exactly the way you want without dropping off this roofline, and that always creates a problem for backseat passengers. And I think they've got the compromise in this car pretty great, actually. It looks stunning, and I still have enough space in the back, so I can't really complain. So here we have another interior for you to take a look at. Styling in this one very similar to the other, but obviously we have a lighter finish. So if you are the kind of person who puts marks on your car, this is not the one to go for. In other respects, the styling is very similar. We also have the full leather seats. We also have the wood trim on the front, but it's still the same great car underneath. So here we have the V6 TDI. That is a 3-litre engine. It produces 286 horsepower, and as I mentioned when I had a look inside, I can't say that because of the edit, sorry. So this is a 3-litre TDI producing 286 horsepower, twinned with the 8-speed Tiptronic gearbox. You can also have a 3-litre TFSI that produces 240 horsepower, and that is twinned with a 7-speed Tiptronic. Both of those engines are mild hybrids, and I think they look very nice indeed. Both of the engines feature start-stop technology. What's new for this model is the way that interacts. If you have a look just here, you can see the front camera, and what's new is that the car automatically will start itself again when it sees the car in front of it start moving. So hopefully those minor niggles that we all had about start-stop technology, meaning that we have to wait for the engine to kick in, you should not even notice that in this car. We'll just have to wait to give it a go to find out how well it works. So that brings us to the end of our preview of the world premiere of the Audi A6. What do you think about it? Well, it's a very, very popular car. So as with the E-Class redesign, a lot of people are very anxious to see what's going to be different about the car. I think they've done a really nice job with the styling. The interior is nice too. I personally would have preferred to have seen a little bit more discreet. I'm not in love with the wood trim, but again, that's my taste. In all other respects, I think it looks great. I really like the way the new infotainment system is integrated into the design of the car. The engines with the mild hybrid are very exciting, and I think the gearboxes are going to deliver a lot. We knew for this model also have all-wheel steering, which is really going to change the way the car handles and performs, and I can't wait to give that a go. If we haven't mentioned any of the details, it's because at all motor shows, it's very difficult getting the information you need until about 3 seconds before you need it. So if there's anything in particular about this car that I haven't mentioned, then please put it in the comments below.
This is the Ford Edge facelift, also introducing the ST line, a sportier look. We're taking a look at it here now, Autogefühl with Thomas for the exterior and the interior. The ST line comes with a glossy black finish here with a comp-style grille, pretty aggressive look, also with the lower bumper, special contrast to the white exterior color, and now full LED headlights. I think it's also suitable for a big SUV of that size and also of that price. It gets also spectacular in the side profile, optional 21-inch wheels, hardly seen with the Ford, but they don't look too huge with this vehicle. ST line logo here on the side profile. Also the side is, dominated by the dropping line right there. Then also black roof rails as a contrast there. The window frames are just held in matte black, basically. You see the taillights already beginning at the side profile. Overall, it's a pretty clean design, and I think the ST line fits the Edge very well. You can also compare our earlier review, the driving review of the Ford Edge. There you can compare how it does look like without the ST line. In the rear, we have this glass style of the taillights, pretty clean overall, and all black in this part because it stresses again this contrast look. And wow, those ones here, by the way, are all the way fake exhaust. They're pretty neat looking fake exhaust, but they are definitely fake exhaust all the way. And let's open this electric tailgate. A little bit tricky here. So there we are. Here we go. And those are nice square dimensions. You see, you do not lose a lot of space. You can also flip the seats from here. This one here, the top cover, is a little bit, wobbly, no rails on the side, but it's quite okay still. Here we go. You can also fit a replacement tire if you want so. And let's see. It's not powered at the moment, but when it would be powered, then you could also put the button here and then the seats would be flipping. So also a quite nice solution, but those show cars are not always all the way powered. And so we cannot test everything. By the way, nicely done here also with the entry cover. It's actually seems like premium quality. Also with the anchor points here, you can use tension belts and put things tight. We cannot open the hood, but I'll tell you about the engine updates. We now have 2.7 liter turbo, 329 horsepower or 335 for the ST, or a 2 liter turbo with 253 horsepower, front wheel drive. There's also new 8-speed converter gearbox. And in the EU, we also get a diesel, 2-liter diesel with 180 horsepower, or with 210, that is then the bi-turbo. Let's check the interior. So, at the inside of the doors, top part is soft touch plastics. Then we have a leather red cover here, all quite good materials. The lower part then is from hard plastic, all automatic window levers right there. There's also the optional Bang & Olufsen sound system. Here in the ST line you got this entry cap right there, and you also have seats with microfiber on the inside. Here we go. And it feels quite nice actually, and they also have a sporty look. The steering wheel then gets also red contrast stitches on the inside, so that's the basic features of the ST line. In the lower part you can also see at the footpegs you got those aluminum footpegs. Let me give you some light as well. Here we go with those aluminum foot pegs or pedals. We're not on the motorcycle here. And let's get inside for the seating comfort. Sometimes I wonder which people were sitting in those vehicles. So now I'm going all the way down. I'm going down, but I'm taking you with me. So let's put that one up right. And that's really fairly comfortable. I still remember the full review of the Ford Edge, and those ST line seats are actually pretty good. You can see that steering wheel can be controlled in all the ways. so everyone can find a good position. It really feels like a grown-up full-size SUV because, especially here in the front console, is really huge. Definitely also with a big hood. So this is really like this king of the road riding style for sure. On the steering wheel, you can set the cruise control, for example, new ACC available, and there are also new assistance systems like the blind spot monitor, lane keeping assist, so if they have updated that. So with the shadowed windows in the rear and all black interior, it's really dark in here, I have to say. They've upgraded also the infotainment system to the newest one they have done, so it works quite fast from the GPS. You can also zoom in and out like this, that's possible. Also, not only connecting the phone via Bluetooth, also there's the new App Connect then, or Sync Connect, where you can just put them in here. You can see that's the Apple CarPlay, for example, available. Those covers here around the buttons, for example, the volume is like very soft rubber. That is cheaply done. They should upgrade that one. The volume, the temperature control is in the lower part right there. You have several storage spaces right there. For example, on the top part, the glove box is quite spacious actually. Also in the lower part right there, you have 2 USB slots, and you see they're a little bit illuminated. That's nice. And then you have the standard